Again, please. Yes. Alright, I'm ready, Mr. Bishop.
Yeah. Oh. Good morning. Good morning. This is Donna Smith from the Eastern Shore.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. We are still just welcoming guests in. We'll do that for a few minutes and then we'll get started for the morning. I'm going to ask if you are would just mind muting yourself as you come in, unless there's
some areas we're seeing around here a lot of the quality homes again, and I'm still going to tell you that.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the 2020 Eastern Shore Housing Summit for 2020. It's about 9:01 Eastern Standard Time, and I am going to give us, as I shared with you in some many, give us a few minutes. Our number is steadily climbing, and so I'm going to give us a few minutes for folks to join. Thank you for those of you who came in and started joining as early as 7:30. I greatly appreciate that. But folks are coming in now quickly. So we're going to give everyone a chance to join us, and for maybe about 3 or 4 more minutes. So before we get started, I know that we have Senator Lewis is with us, and U.S. Representative Elaine Lorios who have joined us, who have very busy days ahead of you. I don't want to prolong the morning, but I do want to give folks an opportunity to join us.
Other people, spending their time and talent making sure that others are taken care of. In romantic relationships,
While we are waiting for folks to join, and the number is still climbing, so I'll give it a minute or another minute or so. While we are waiting for folks to join, if you worked on one of the 5 committees for the Eastern Shore Regional Housing Coalition over this past 12 months, will you make a note of that in the comments? Will you share that with us in the comments so that when we get ready to do our working session at the end of the morning, you can be rejoined to that committee if it's your interest in doing so, because we are going to have to have some discussion about our plans for the year to come, and your historical knowledge of the work that was done over the previous year would be helpful to those who are just joining those committees. So the work of those committees. So if you worked on a committee over the course of the past year, please share that in the comments with us. As soon as I find the comments, where are the comments? Well, folks are still coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 2020 Eastern Shore Housing Summit. It is a pleasure. I'm Gabrielle-Wise, and I work with the Eastern Shore Regional Housing Coalition and the New Road Community Development Groups and several other housing-related organizations on the shore. It's my pleasure to be back here with you once again a year after we met last year with very little expectation, except that we knew that we had a crisis in housing on the shore and we needed to mobilize ourselves to work on this very important issue. And to say that I am overwhelmed and completely amazed and astounded at the work that so many of you have put together, have done this year, has been unbelievable in the face of all that we have had to deal with this year. Many of you have just stood there steadfast and worked with us to get some amazing work done. And it has been an extraordinary experience for me. Again, we have our host, Senator Linwood Lewis, and we are grateful for you to be here. We learned just a short time ago that our governor has been called. I don't know if some of you are aware of whatever's happening in Richmond. Both Rob Bloxham and Governor Northam have both been called away for pressing matters in Richmond, which is why I want to get Senator Lewis going right away, because I know that this is happening in Richmond right now. And so I'm going to turn it over to him and let him know the governor's not with us, so but I'm hoping that you still will share your wisdom and knowledge and all whatever consult that you have for our community in these very trying times. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see. I was scrolling through the list. We were up to 48 participants now. Scrolling through the list. It's a great group on here this morning and growing as we speak. And so glad to be with you again. It's a very different world than the last time I was with you. And we're all struggling on how to deal with that. We are, as I believe Ava indicated, in special session now. And we're going back and forth a couple times a week in the Senate, and the House is doing it virtually. And so we're taking up a lot of important measures, a lot of issues dealing with housing in this special session. We're doing a rent relief program. We're all eviction moratoriums. Also dealing with tangentially to housing is utilities and utility cutoff moratoriums and how repayment plans post-COVID are to be implemented. So all things that touch on housing in this extended special session. I think this is going to be the longest special session in modern history. We're going into month 2 now of meeting in the Science Museum for the Senate in Richmond. We can't meet in the Capitol because it's not appropriate for social distancing. So a lot going on here. Governor Northam has been pre-COVID and now post-COVID working on important housing issues with his administration, making progress in that regard. Just yesterday, he announced a program, which I'm sure Eric will talk about, regarding landlord assistance in addition to tenant assistance with rent. So all those things are important. I just want to thank, again, Ava, and following in a proud family tradition with your activism here on the Eastern Shore, and also the Housing Coalition and all the work that's been done off season, off session, offline, in pushing these important issues, as well as both counties. And so pleased to be with you today. I too am going to have to hop off at some point. And I see Congresswoman Lurie has joined us. Again, another important advocate for the Eastern Shore, always over here, always working for us, and very on top of all Eastern Shore specific issues. So glad she's with us this morning. But I understand Eric Johnston with the Department of Housing and Community Development is going to be joining us in the governor's stead. And I look forward to hearing from Eric. So again, thank you all for your interest, your activism, your work, and thank you for having me be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Eric, I noticed under your name, it says Staff Governor Northam. So I know that you are also the Director of Department of Housing and Community Development for the Eastern Shore. But in this capacity, we will ask you if you will share on behalf of Governor Northam what you would like to share this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. It's so good to be with everyone this morning. I know Governor Northam was very much looking forward to being with you all this morning and sends his regrets for not being here. As Ava said, there's a
possibly also why I'm not sure
right now and today. Thank you, Senator Lewis, for your leadership on housing and for all the General Assembly's leadership on affordable housing and responding to the pandemic. Also appreciate Delegate Bloxham and Representative Loria. There's so much going on in partnership between the federal, state, and local level right now, housing to the pandemic, long-term needs. I also want to especially thank the Eastern Shore Housing Coalition, Regional Housing Coalition, for your leadership. You're being spark plugs and working to got a little feedback there. Might need to, if you're not on mute, go ahead and mute your mics. So I also want to thank New Road Community Development Group, Accomack County, Northampton County, the towns, developers, advocates for housing. There's been a lot of energy, a lot of good projects being worked on and follow through from the last coalition last year. So that's what it takes to make a difference in housing. It's really the main work in housing is at the local level, local and regional level, to create the land use and the incentives and the partnership with the state and federal funding sources to create more affordable housing for Virginians. We also, I know we'll hear later today from Virginia Housing, our partner, formerly known as VHDA, and we have a slew of staff on from the Department of Housing and Community Development who we really have a passion for this work and look forward to the continued conversation today. Safe, sustainable, and affordable housing throughout the Commonwealth remains a top priority for Governor Northam. And although Virginia has made tremendous progress in improving the quality of housing for Virginians, we know there's still much work to do. Affordable, safe, and accessible housing is the foundation of any great community, and it seems this is more evident than ever as we face the unprecedented effects in the COVID-19 pandemic. Those of us on this call working on housing have always known the connection between housing and health, housing and education, housing and the economy, but the pandemic has highlighted that for the nation. During this current session of the General Assembly, Governor Northam has proposed $88 million in state funding to prevent evictions and to expand access to affordable housing throughout Virginia. This is a historic investment, a historic proposed investment. The Housing Trust Fund is the key portion of that investment at $85 million. And to give you some perspective on that, the last fiscal year, our base budget is at $7 million. So this is a historic investment. These funds are especially important as we work to keep Virginians safe and stable housing during COVID-19 pandemic, and for the long-term work we have been working on together to create more affordable housing options and increase the supply of housing. Virginia Housing Trust Fund is the Commonwealth's most effective tool to create and preserve affordable housing and provide housing solutions for persons experiencing homelessness. The trust fund investments incentivize local approaches to address housing for vulnerable populations, including families and individuals who cannot afford decent, safe housing, disabled persons needing accessible housing in addition to supportive services, seniors struggling to locate affordable housing on fixed incomes, home ownership opportunities that create wealth generation opportunities, and then persons experiencing homelessness or struggling with mental health or other health issues. The key is that it responds to the local priorities, but focuses on the most vulnerable populations in our Commonwealth. We here at the Department of Housing and Community Development administrate the Virginia Housing Trust Fund as part of our affordable and special needs housing programs, which combines federal funds such as home funds and the National Housing Trust Fund with the Virginia Housing Trust Fund. So again, I thank Representative Loria and our congressional Senator Warner and Kane for their advocacy for those federal funds that are so critical as well. And then the state funds to the trust fund. This program has served to fund 2 large housing projects on the Eastern Shore, including Pine Tree Apartments and the Bailey Road Apartments. In addition to the Housing Trust Fund investments proposed, the governor has proposed $3.3 million, and Senator Lewis and the General Assembly members were a part of passing a budget in the earlier part of this year that included this funding that created an evictions prevention and diversion pilot program to reduce evictions in communities across the Commonwealth. It's been a priority of Governor Northam in his Housing Executive Order 25, and it's been a focus as our agency for the first time has had staff to focus on this effort. And the whole goal of this effort is to create the continuum of support between and partnership between landlords, legal aid, social services, and community groups to help tenants with preventing eviction. And to address the continued eviction crisis, which has been exacerbated by COVID-19, the governor has proposed a pause on evictions based on inability to pay until January 31st, 2021 in the budget, with the focus before this date on being a requirement that landlords and tenants work together on payment plans and seeking out financial assistance, including through the Virginia's statewide rent and mortgage relief program, which Senator Lewis spoke of earlier, and has had. We appreciate the General Assembly's work on that as well. Really, these are unprecedented times, and it calls for unprecedented cooperation between landlords, tenants, and the state to work together. The governor has allocated COVID relief funds from the CARES Act, provided by our federal partners. And really, at this moment in time, we have a unique opportunity to help landlords and tenants be made whole during the pandemic with the rent and mortgage relief program, operated at the state level and administrated locally. We launched the rent and mortgage relief program on June 29th, using $50 million in CARES funds. And the focus is to provide financial assistance for eligible households based both on availability and household need. This includes financial assistance for rent or mortgage payments past due from April 1st, 2020 and onward. Then that's in relation to the federal requirements during the COVID pandemic. Financial assistance is provided in the form of a one-time payment with the opportunity for renewal based on availability of funding, the household's need for additional assistance, and continued eligibility. The top goal of the rent and mortgage relief program is to keep households in safe and affordable housing by utilizing the funding resources to make tenants and homeowners, as well as landlords and mortgage companies, whole on current and outstanding payments. As of September 9th, we have seen more than $7.2 million in rent and mortgage payments made on behalf of Virginia households. We are also seeing the inseparable connection between our Commonwealth's history of racial inequality and housing, as Black and Brown communities are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and housing insecurity. The Black community accounts for 90% of the overall population of the Commonwealth, but 52% of households assisted so far with the
Morning, Angela.
program.
Hi, Angela. This is Deborah Vitakus with.
There are nearly 6,100 renters across Accomack and Northampton counties and nearly 12,500 homeowners. We know that we need to work with local partners like those of you here today to spread the word about the availability of the rent and mortgage relief program to individuals and families in need. Households can call 211 and also could call that line for what Senator Lewis mentioned in terms of utility assistance, other types of assistance, social service assistance. And now, as Senator Lewis mentioned, with input from the General Assembly and others, that we also have the ability for landlords to apply directly to Virginia Housing on behalf of their tenants. I want to emphasize that's going to be a key component in expanding exponentially our capacity as a state to get those funds out. And I appreciate our partners at Virginia Housing who are working, that can do batch applications now, as landlords can work with their their tenants to help apply. They have much of the data already needed to access those funds. And so that launched yesterday statewide. And I really encourage folks to direct the communities and households they're working with and landlords to stayhomevirginia.com. At stayhomevirginia.com, there are tabs. There's a renters tab, a landlord tab, a tab for homeowners, a tab for people experiencing homelessness. And right now there is so much going on and changes at the federal and state and local level on housing policy in relation to eviction moratoria, in relation to forbearance rules from Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. So that website has all the updates that are going on in plain language and in multiple languages, so that it's accessible for families and landlords, all those involved in housing. The key is that on that page there's information about the federal EDC eviction moratorium, and also the rent and mortgage relief doors, the different doors available for landlords or tenants to walk through to apply. The important thing about the eviction moratoria at the federal level that's in place right now, and also the pause on evictions proposed in the state budget, is that tenants and landlords' rent continues to accrue. And so we want to ensure that at the end of those moratoria that are designed to keep people safe in their homes during the pandemic, that the rent and mortgage assistance can be there to keep landlords and tenants whole, and to make sure we don't have an even greater challenge at the end of the moratoria. And so that's going to require a lot of education, a lot of outreach, and we're working diligently on that, and appreciate your partnership to spread the word about that as well, and spread the word about the new guidelines that allow payments from April 1st onward. I also, in turning from affordable housing, I wanted to make a couple things I knew the governor wanted to announce or remind folks of, is that last week he did announce 2 new designated Virginia Main Street communities right here on the Eastern Shore, the towns of Cape Charles and Anancock. The newly designated communities completed a competitive application process and will receive intensive services to help strengthen their downtowns, including market analysis, marketplace development, capacity building, design assistance, organization development, economic strategies, and facade renderings for redevelopment projects. This means more jobs, more private investment, and bringing new life into these downtown districts. It's not just great news for these towns, but for the entire shore. From indoor plumbing to water and sewer projects and neighborhood and downtown revitalization projects happening throughout your counties and towns, we know that these investments will not only generate more private investment, but create and be focused on local priority and need. Your work and focus together is taking the Eastern Shore on a continued trajectory for success. So just as Virginia and the Eastern Shore's housing and community needs are varied and diverse, we at the state level want our ability to address them to be flexible and responsive. I want to thank each of you for your tireless and hard work to create a better life for all that call the Eastern Shore home. You all have accomplished a great deal, but there's much work ahead. I know the governor and his staff and agencies look forward to partnering to help all Virginians have access to high quality, affordable housing. And we want to build vibrant and sustainable communities that provide economic opportunities to all residents. I'm really excited, and we all are at the state level, to hear the outcomes of today's summit in terms of the next steps ahead, and appreciate all of your work to make things happen in this space. So thank you, Ava, for your leadership, and thank you all on the call for your leadership. We look forward to the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate those comments, and please extend our appreciation to the governor for his leadership on this issue, and certainly to you and your support. I think I shared with you on the phone the other day that without DHCD's leadership and support and institutional undergirding of this effort, that made it real and tangible for this community to think that with your intentional participation in this process, that we could make a difference. I don't know that without that kind of commitment, that we could be here having accomplished all that we did and looking forward to a productive next 12 months. So thank you for that. I'm going to turn now to Representative Elaine Luria. In our community, it's been a couple of years. She's our current member of Congress who's been there for a few years now. And in our community, she almost needs no introduction. She has been ever present in our communities, at our organizations, in our churches, in our associations, and we are extremely grateful for that kind of leadership, who is always accessible and available, and her staff is extremely helpful. I cannot say enough about Caroline and the role that she has played in the work of the Housing Coalition and just about anything that is asked of her as a member of Representative Luria's staff. She has been a phenomenal and extraordinary asset to our community. And so without further ado, I'm going to invite U.S. State Representative Elaine Luria to greet you and share with you what she has today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ava, and thank you for the very kind introduction. And I will second everything you said about Caroline. She has just done a great job of outreach on the shore. And if anybody on the call today has not yet had a chance to meet Caroline Bott, she is our representative on the shore. Her office is in the Olney Town Center, and she is always available to help with these and other issues. And it's great to be here today. Eric, thanks for being here to represent the governor's office, and Senator Lewis, and I know that Delegate Bloxham is very involved in these issues as well, but was unable to join at the last minute today. But I just want to highlight the fact that, you know, we really need to work together at the federal, state, and local level. And I know that we have some different members of the Board of Supervisors from Northampton and Accomack County. I see Renetta Major on the line as well. And I know that you'll have a chance to speak shortly about the efforts that you're doing to work in the area of housing. As Eric mentioned, you know, a lot of the focus in the immediate term is to do with housing security during the COVID pandemic and the programs that are being rolled out in order to help with that. So I'm really glad to see how the governor has been able to use some of the CARES Act funding that was available in order to help you know, people in our local communities maintain their housing security. I was up on the shore a few weeks ago, sat down with Elaine Mell at the Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission, and we talked through the rent and mortgage relief program, and she gave several examples of how that's been successful. But as Eric mentioned, I think that one of the biggest challenges is getting that word out, and the idea that the parameters have been expanded now so that landlords can also apply on behalf of their tenants is a win-win for everyone. So I just, while you were talking, Eric sent an email to my staff to say this is an outreach email we need to send and make sure that we can try to help get that information out. Because I think that some of the people who need this assistance the most are some who have the least reliable access to internet or potentially the least likely to come across this information. So also allowing the landlords to be part of that process and helping get that information out. We will try to spread that far and wide. And you know, the numbers you mentioned, 50 million has been allocated to this. I'll take a step back. In the CARES Act and in all of the funding that we've done as far as COVID relief, one of our big priorities is to make sure that we could have funding for state and local government. In the CARES Act, we did get 150 billion, and of that, approximately 3.3 billion went to the Commonwealth of Virginia. I think that, you know, the governor has done a great job in sending that out to our cities, to our counties, and through programs like this that are going to help reach people. But what was problematic about that funding was that it was required to be directly in response to the COVID pandemic, and that was a very narrow tranche of what the money could be used for, and there was a great need there. But one of the things I've advocated for is to have increased flexibility for the governors, and then Also once, spoke to people all over the region, and Northampton, Accomack County included, that the timeline of December 31st for spending those funds is very limiting. And so also I'm advocating for expanding the timeline because I know that there's significant investments that could be made in things such as increasing rural broadband, and talk to the Broadband Authority about that as well, if some CARES Act funding was available for that, but the timeline is constraining potentially the best or fullest use of those funds that are available. In DC, we're also working, and if you've looked at the news at all, it's been stalled quite a few times to try to get another COVID relief package that could include things such as additional assistance to individuals, continuation of the expanded unemployment benefits, and other programs like this, specifically for state and local government, is one of our top priorities to make sure that we can get that funding included, because we understand that at the state and local level, the loss of revenue has caused significant implications economically, and that we need to be able to make up for that. And then other small business programs like an extension or continuation of the payroll protection program, which was a beneficial program for small businesses. And I know many on the shore we've spoken to have been able to take advantage of that, but many have not. And so we're still working to make sure that we can try to expand that program. And there was actually funding remaining within the pot for the PPP program. So the ability to continue that program so that those funds can be used and they can reach the smallest businesses in the most remote places, and try to really get that funding to everyone. And also applaud the governor as well for, on top of the PPP program and the SBA program, the EIDL loans, there was also another program through the Commonwealth that allowed funding for small businesses that weren't eligible for either of those. And I know this is about housing, but housing is about economic security for families as well. And so circling back on that, in the CARES Act, there was funding for fisheries that was allocated through NOAA. It was 300 million, so incredibly insufficient to meet the need across the country. And then the Commonwealth of Virginia actually got way less than its fair share based off of the economic impact of aquaculture and fisheries here in Virginia. So I know that the Marine Fisheries Commission has come up with a spend plan of how they'll allocate that funding. But I've been continuously advocating that we have more funding for fisheries and specifically for aquaculture. It's frequently overlooked, whenever we do things related to agriculture, it's left out. Whenever we do things related to fisheries, it's left out. So making sure that aquaculture is included in that discussion, and that we make sure that, those important jobs, we're the biggest producer of clams, clams and oysters from the shore, that they're also getting those resources that are available across other sectors. And there is some news that in some of the recent programs through USDA, that additional products will be included in the new phase of that. So that should provide some additional relief to those industries, less jobs. And, we're talking about financial well-being and protecting the security of people's housing. So that is, kind of the update on some different aspects related to CARES funding and COVID relief. Another thing our office is specifically working on, and Caroline has gotten some very good news on this. We've heard frequently that because the Eastern Shore USDA Rural Development Office, there's not a representative currently on the shore. The previous representative retired and hasn't been replaced. And she's been working with the state director for USDA Rural Development, and an update that we got just a couple days ago, basically says they're working through all the logistics of this, and by the end of the month that they will have a work plan in place to create the groundwork to fill that position and all the logistics behind that. So understanding that the USDA Rural Development Office provides a lot of resources for people on the shore, and the fact that there hasn't physically been a representative on the shore has made it harder for people to participate in these USDA programs that are important for housing, as well as other things. So we are working carefully on that. Federal funding for important programs like the Community Development Block Grant Program through Housing and Urban Development, as well as the USDA Rural Development Programs, those continue to be top priorities of mine. And then, Ava has really been an advocate for the Southeastern Crescent Regional Commission. There are these types of commissions that have been established in other parts of the country. You probably heard a lot about the Appalachian Regional Commission, and a lot of work went into that. With the changing of the economy in the Appalachian area, such as coal mines being shuttered and things like that. But the Southeastern Crescent Regional Commission was basically authorized but never established. No one was ever appointed to be part of it. And there are a lot of resources that that our region could be eligible for through a commission like this, but it's just never been invigorated, never been given life, never put people in place to work through this commission and the resources that could be available. So I know Ava is a big advocate for that. She's working on that, and we are trying to work closely with her in seeing how we can encourage this administration or the next administration to prioritize this, because there is a lot of need in our rural areas through the Southeastern Crescent region, and that will be a priority that we will continue to work on moving forward. And lastly, when we talk about issues on the Eastern Shore, the two most common things I hear are obviously what we're talking about today, which is the lack of affordable housing. But the next is lack of access to broadband internet. And I just, keep it short on that topic, but that's something that my office has been working on, has been advocating for. And in the House, we did pass a very large infrastructure package, which included significant funding for rural broadband development. It does not appear currently that that's going to move forward through the Senate, but it is something that I will continue to advocate for. Because understanding the issues related to access to broadband, which have only been exacerbated now in our current situation where many people are either working from home or students are trying to participate in school either fully or partially from their homes, it just makes it that much more challenging for rural communities to be able to connect and to be viable, and as far as quality education for our children, businesses to keep up and running. So rural broadband is a very important issue for me, and I'll continue to find ways to work on that. And my colleague also in the House from the 7th District in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, has a largely rural district as well, and she sits on the Agriculture Committee, and she has been working closely on those rural broadband issues as well. So we will continue to partner on that as well with Congressman Rob Whitman. His district is pretty much the other side of the bay. So I think that all of your Virginia representatives in Washington understand the need for access to rural broadband, and we're working closely together in a bipartisan way to make sure that we can forward these issues. So I know that Ava said there might be some time for questions later, so I will stick around and also look forward to hearing from the other people who've joined us. I know Renetta Major is here and from Accomack County, and hopefully some of the other I can't scroll through everybody that quickly, but lots of folks. But hopefully, the other folks from Northampton, Accomack County, and the different towns on the shore will also be able to give us some perspective that we can take back and help influence our work. So thank you again for having me, and I will stay on for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for mentioning the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission. Everyone who knows me knows that that is one of my passions and has been for almost 2 decades. Rural communities in Virginia is very fortunate. I shared with some folks the other day on a conference call. Virginia is very fortunate. We have the Department of Housing and Community Development. We have Virginia Housing. We have Virginia Community Capital. We have very committed leadership in our elected officials who are advocates for rural communities and the resources that we need to build and grow and be sustained. In other states around the Southeast region of the United States, those institutional investments are not there. We don't have, I think Rusty Smith, who is here with us from the Auburn University Rural Studio, will be presenting later, and he shared a statistic with me a couple of weeks ago that I think was $5 on the West Coast, like in San Francisco, there's $5 spent per capita for private foundation investment in local issues in San Francisco, compared to most places in the Southeast region, the Deep South, it's 40 cents per capita. And so when you think about the disproportionate investment in rural communities in the private sector foundation, then you have to turn to the institutional investment of your public sector. And in the rural South, that doesn't exist in the way that it does in the upper rural South. So in Virginia, we are extremely fortunate, and I think sometimes we don't realize how appreciative we should be of the availability and accessibility for resources to support community development work, because that is not the case in a lot of the southern states. And so the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission can be a very important institutional investor with public resources in strategic things like infrastructure and the kind of, and broadband and the things that are needed in the 21st century to make the rural South competitive. And so, yeah, I am an advocate, and I'm hoping that all of you will also join me in advocating for this kind of investment to be made. And if you think about even in our own state, the value of having an Appalachian Regional Commission, what it means to the rural counties in the western part of our state compared to what is available to us on the eastern side of the state, Eric and those who are on his staff can share with you, it is a major difference in what can happen in that part of the state with the benefit of having the ARC there. And if he wants to add anything to that, you're welcome, Eric, to do so, please.
Yeah, I will just say on that the governor has been very supportive of the Southeast Regional Commission, and what we also, like Ava said, the ARC resources and the partnership with that entity has been very helpful especially for distressed counties where there has been less where there's been some economic challenges. So I'll just say that we appreciate, we're lucky in Virginia. Ava and our delegation has been very, Representative Loria has been very vocal in this, and we're definitely partnering with our ARC. The Southeast Crescent really is basically east of the ARC, Appalachian Regional Commission region in the Southeast states, and we certainly are talking with our peer states and very supportive of that effort. It's been a long effort, but it's really critical.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. And so now we're going to turn to our local leaders, and then we'll have just a few minutes for some questions. And I know that Supervisor Renita Major did sign up to speak, so she will be next. But I wanted to ask, is there anyone from Northampton County who did not get an opportunity to sign up to speak? Just let me know in the comments while she is speaking, and then you will be next. But I'm now opening the floor to Supervisor Renita Major. Oh, you're muted.
How about that? Can you hear me now? I want to say good morning to all of you. I want to thank Ava and also Senator Lewis, whomever, who thought it not robbery to put this housing conference on again. I think it's fruitful. Even though I am an elected official of Accomack County, my other hat is I work at the Department of Social Services. So I do want to shout out to my director, Mozella Francis, for allowing me to be here as well. And so I get to be on the policy side of it, but I also get to meet the rubber, I guess the rubber meets the road. I'll get it out once. I'll get it out. So I get to see people who are actually in need and firsthand. So that kind of can be enlightening and makes my job as far as a supervisor in that arena kind of easier for me to implement different policies. I do want to say, as far as Accomack County, we have, as far as the CARES Act, we know we've gotten the second round of that money, and if Elaine Loria, Congressman Elaine Loria, could, and she talked about extending that would be fruitful. We're trying to expand the money and in a fruitful way. One of the things that we're doing, we're partnering with our Accomack County Planning District Commission has a rent mortgage program, and which is already where people are facing foreclosures, evictions, and those type of things. Well, we're part of our CARES Act funding. We're have $100,000 towards that. Basically, it's going to follow the same guidelines as Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission has set up. The only difference is we're kind of raising the bar as far as the medium family income base. I think theirs is at 80% of the federal medium income base, and we're raising ours to 150% of the area medium income. So we're kind of raising the bar a little bit. And so basically that comes from Accomack County from our CARES Act funding. We're pledged to do that. We got that passed the last time we met in September. So but basically Accomack Northampton, like I said, is going to be administering that program, but we want to get the word out to folk who are having problems because of COVID with their rent, with their mortgage. And I just know, and basically I work in Northampton County, and like I said, in social services, and I see it a lot. People are coming in and they are in need of funding. So if some of my Northampton cohorts out there, I'll kind of want to challenge you to do the same with your CARES Act money. I'm not trying to tell you how to spend your money, but I think this is a good way that we can help the masses in this pandemic. We're involved in a lot of housing. I know there's Bobby Jo Worth is on the line as well from Accomack Planning District Commission, and she's working with the Community Black Block Grant, where we're doing the rehabilitation of, gosh, and this just flew out of my brain, of Bobby, if you're on the line, tell me the name of that.
Gospel Temple Adams Crossing.
Exactly, Gospel Temple Adams Crossing Road, and we're been granted with that. That's one of our priorities, and we're working along with that, and that's coming along. And so we're in Accomack County. I just want to stress that we are very much involved with housing, and we work closely with ANPDC, but even other entities that we're doing. And as long as I'm on the board, housing is one of my passions. Affordable housing, when it comes to, I know right now we're in the virtual age of, as far as teachers are concerned, but as far as when teachers come here, when other folk kind of locate to our region or to our county, we want to make sure housing is not one of the problems. And we know that we still have some, especially in that Gospel Temple Adams, I just was really appalled that we still have people that have private privies in the 21st century. That is just unacceptable. So we're trying to rectify that, and we have other localities and different places in Accomack County who, one that stands out is on the Bayside community. They have really organized, and I really, they come to our meetings and they get involved, and they're trying to help their communities. And sometimes it takes some of us who are in those communities to get together and to advocate and to find out what are the different things that we can do. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what I like about the housing conference that we have. I've learned so much, and I'm just so glad to just be a part. And I guess that's basically all I had to say. I want to thank the staff from the governor's office and Congressman Elaine Laurier and Ava again for being on. And I think our county administrator is on the line. Is Mike Mason, you're still there? I know he said he was going in and out. So if I have...
Renita, I'm here.
Okay, great. If I've neglected saying anything, I'm going to yield some of my time to him, because I want you to make sure that I get the full picture of the Accomack County is definitely on board with housing. Mike?
Thank you, Renita, and thank you, Ava, for putting this summit on. I'll be brief. Renita touched on a lot of the comments, but I will say that under Renita's leadership, especially as chairman of the Accomack County Board of Supervisors, more emphasis has been placed on affordable housing. Quite frankly, if a number of years ago, we sort of were pursuing some other initiatives out there and really lost sight of some of the things that really matter to this community. But there's a refound effort to devote to areas like affordable housing in Accomack County. Since Renita discussed a little bit, I will comment a little bit on what Accomack County is referring as a complementary program to the Virginia Rent and Mortgage Relief Program. As Renita said, and some speakers earlier even commented on that program as well. Accomack has raised the bar on that program by making sure that by increasing the income levels for those eligible for the program, we can appeal to a broader base across the shore. I've encouraged any of you who know anyone who's behind with their rent to reach out to the Accomack County, Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission about that program. Again, they are administering two programs. They're administering Virginia RMRP, and they're also administering the county program, which was just stood up by agreement this week. So it is brand new, but between those two programs, there is a lot of opportunity to get assistance. In addition, we're also, and this is really looking at some of the Accomack's CARES Act initiatives. What we've tried to do is stand up a lot of programs that appeal to a broad base of the community, small business assistance grants, broadband initiatives where we can, the rent mortgage assistance program. And I've also got a conference call later this month to discuss about how we can partner with ANEC and the Department of Social Services for utility assistance by expanding and providing supplemental funding for the Members Helping Members program. For a small locality like Accomack, it's important that we, with the lack of resources out there, try to establish partnerships with various groups, because that is, we found that's the most beneficial way of getting assistance out in the community. And that's sort of the mindset that we've approached many of our programs with the CARE funds, to find entities out there, particular ones that are governmental entities that can speed this process up and help us provide the assistance that the community needs at this time. But again, we do have a number of housing initiatives going on. We know we need to do more. There's no doubt about it. We have historically relied on DHCD assistance to do various projects, but we also know that that's not enough, and quite frankly, we need to do more, to stand up more projects and appeal to a broader base. But again, thanks for the opportunity to comment, and I look forward to the rest of the summit this morning.
Thank you, Renita and Mike. Is there someone from Northampton County? I think I just got a message that Sarah Morgan, some members of the Northampton Planning Commission are here and didn't get an opportunity to sign up but would like to speak. Would you chime in now so I can see who it is?
Hey, but it's Charlie Kolakowski.
Hey, Charlie, how are you? I just sent you a message to ask if you were speaking. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Thank you for organizing this effort. Yeah, Northampton County is continuing to work on affordable housing activity, both immediate and longer term. We're also recognizing the immediate issues people are having with paying rent and utilities, food security. We've provided $75,000 in supplemental funding for our local social services to assist them in areas to assist people with your utilities, with their rent, with food security. We are working with ANPDC on trying to develop a project for providing affordable housing in the county. We continue to work with our the area aging agency to see if we can get them additional funds to help people who are facing difficulties from the COVID crisis. And we are also soliciting grant proposals for small businesses who have been impacted by the COVID crisis.
Thank you, Charlie. So I think Janet Sturgis and Sarah Morgan are also here with us from the Planning Commission. Would one of you like to share something before we move on to questions and answers? Either of you? No, just mention that they are on. Okay, they just want me to mention that.
Ava,
Okay, are you there?
This is Sarah Morgan. My video doesn't work on my computer. I apologize. But I do want people in Northampton County to be aware that we are actively working on our comprehensive plan, and we really, really need input from the public in terms of housing needs and housing wants. We are currently discussing ways of increasing the availability of workforce housing and affordable housing. And we welcome both letters and also attendance at our regular meetings, where there are a couple of opportunities for people to speak and share their feelings about these subjects. Also, one really quick comment there. We have started having an informational session at the very beginning of each regular session of our Planning Commission, and will continue to update people on the progress that we're making with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
And thank you. And so we have just a couple of seconds before we'll have to go into the next session for questions. There was one that I think, there are two questions that I think will be fit for this panel of speakers. And the first one came from Donna Boza from CB's, and it says, and she's with us if she wants to clear up what I'm about to read. You can help me, Donna, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to read it for you. What, if any, safeguards will be incorporated to ensure that the efforts for affordable housing do not get hijacked for for-profit entities? In other words, used to build such things as high-end retirement condos and/or rentals, as we've seen push out locals in North Carolina's Outer Banks and closer to home, the town of Cape Charles. Who would like to maybe respond to that question? Charlie or someone from the Planning Commission like to respond to that?
Well, depending on the type of effort that's being made to provide affordable housing, you can certainly put in restrictions. In fact, for many of the programs and projects, especially ones which receive state and or federal funds, it's required that there be covenants on the properties that they are to be maintained as affordable housing and cannot be used for vacation rentals and for high-end condos. So in some cases, especially when you're talking about projects which will be subsidized or assisted with government funds, there will be covenants that would preclude their use by as high-end condos. In the town of Cape Charles, I will leave it to Cape Charles representatives since they do their own zoning and they would have their own requirements, but certainly you can put covenants on development and on projects that would preclude that from happening. But it is something certainly that you do need to watch out, in particular in any resort area where property values are skyrocketing, such as you're seeing directly in the town of Cape Charles, that it is important to make sure that if you are actually looking to create affordable housing, that it be maintained as such. So it's something that which you really need to look at. I would say that throughout the rest of the county, the use of restrictive covenants, or perhaps just doing it on a small step-by-step basis, would probably serve as a break to people making a concerted effort to take that over. I know we don't want to see a bunch of overdevelopment going on. We do need to provide housing for our workforce and for people who need affordable housing. So I think it's something which we need to keep our eye on, and there are a number of tools that can be used to try and prevent that from happening, where locals are pushed out and people don't get an opportunity that we're looking to provide.
Thank you. Sarah, I think I saw your hand. Are you there? Sarah Morgan?
No,
Hello?
I think that was Janet Sturgis, who also signed in on me because she had not had an opportunity to sign in. So I'm sorry that there's a little.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm wondering if at some point today, whether any of the presenters will be touching on anticipated climate change and sea level rise, and what impacts that can have on our quest for affordable and workforce housing, because it's something we're having to deal with in our comp plan, and it's something we need to keep in the back of our head. How much of our resources do we want to, for instance, invest in fighting a losing battle in some of these communities with sea level rise impacting them and subsidence? That's just one question, but I'm just wondering if that's going to be part of the presentation today at some point.
And the answer to that is yes. So in our third hour, we'll be doing breakout sessions. And one of the breakout sessions to which you have already been assigned is, and I try to assign you by what I know are your areas of interest or the work that you have previously done with the coalition. But there is a breakout called Comp Plan, Housing Study, and Land Use Review and Initiatives. So I know that there are some folks who are interested in the issue of climate change and or water rise, however you choose to look at it. We can, and that is the place where I hope that that conversation can happen. The second question, I don't think we're going to have time to get to because it is a longer question. It is about the Virginia Rent and Mortgage Relief Program. Eric had sent me a message this morning that he could speak to that, that question. I'm going to ask that that question be held in the Shore Resources breakout session. So there's another session that's called the Shore Resources breakout session. And in that one, we're talking about the resources that are available right now and what we want to do around addressing issues that may come up around the programs that are in existence, and the resources that we'd like to see, like what Representative Luria shared with us, her wonderful news about the recent developments with the USDA RD office hopefully being restored to the shore once again. That is the place where I hope that those kind of conversations can be held today, that we plan for the next 12 months and the things that we'd like to see. So we're going to actually have to move on, however, to the next session, which is to receive an update on our accomplishments over the course of the past year. We got a lot done, surprisingly, despite the pandemic and everything that has gone on this year. We were able to get quite a bit accomplished. Before they leave, because I think I see them popping out, I want to thank Representative Luria and if they have already gone, please, your staff, let them know. I'd like to thank Governor Northam for having you here, Eric. I'd like to thank Representative Loria for coming and joining us. Senator Northam, thank you for your leadership on this issue. I got ahead of myself and didn't get a chance to thank them because they popped out before I got a chance to say goodbye. So thank you for your leadership and your participation, and we look forward to working with you in the future. As we move forward, however, I would like to talk about what we have been able to get accomplished this year, despite all of the challenges that we faced as a community and as a world. And I'm going to start with the comp plan updates. I know Northampton, Accomack County may not have as much to report right now because this is not their season. But Northampton County is in the season of making their comp plan update. And so if there is someone who would like to make that report, Charlie, can we get that update from you on where Northampton County is with the comp plan process?
Ava, I'll defer to the Planning Commission members who are there, who I know have been working diligently on it. They've had a number of long work sessions. They're putting a lot of hours and effort into it, so I'll defer to them to give an update on the progress they're making.
Okay. Will that be Sarah or Janet? While we wait for them,
Well,
I see your hand.
There she is.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion, but Sarah and I are sharing a line. Just to reiterate what Sarah said, we've had a couple of extra work sessions. We've moved our work session meetings to the afternoon so we'd be a little more productive. We're doing a lot of reading and sharing of resources. We're right now looking and analyzing how to best approach livable communities in our land use mapping. And again, to reiterate what Commissioner Morgan said, we welcome and are begging for citizen input. What the citizens envision and what the citizens need in land use planning in Northampton County. And I urge again to attend the first 30 minutes of our regular meetings the first Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. from 6 to 6:30 on those regular meetings the first Tuesday of the month for an update on our progress. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Well, just to say that we are actively working on the land use map, the future land use map, and it's critical for people who are especially interested in maintaining or creating areas such as hamlets and other spaces that are protected from various types of industrial farming or other types of changes, to make those views known to us and to participate in this really important initiative, because the comp plan is the overall guidance document for our zoning. So even though it's not the law per se, it is super important. And I would say that, you know, Accomack folks need to keep that in mind as well. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Paul Grossman, I see your hand. I see it literally now, both virtually and literally. Did you have something you wanted to share?
I'm Paul Grossman on the Planning Commission here in Cape Charles, in Town Council for Cape Charles. And to answer one of the questions that came up before, as far as the comp plan goes, we have collected a bunch of the survey data, had a bunch of meetings, one of which was a regional housing meeting that was held in Cape Charles for the county's benefit that really benefited us tremendously. We are in the process of now starting to draft the various sections or chapters, housing probably being the one that's most complete right now, but not out for any type of review. And I can tell you that affordability and workforce housing has been made part of it, because as you start seeing some of the statistics, it's just going in a particular direction where you're going to be excluding certain segments of the economic population from even attempting to break into Cape Charles. So it is recognized, and we will be taking action and proposing goals in order to address that. The other thing I wanted to mention that we did, the town council had created a committee perhaps a year ago to look at some of our zoning sections, and we actually changed the ordinance in certain segments of our land area to make it more available to different types of homes, whether it be townhouses, or because we recognize rental units is a key. Rental units that are affordable as opposed to the condos that are sitting on Mason Avenue overlooking the water. So we did actually change the ordinance. Whether we went far enough is to be seen, but I just wanted to say we did take that particular step.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We'll move on now to the regional housing study. And I know Russ and Bobby Joe are here, but I was told that Elaine would likely give the report today. So Elaine, if you're here.
Ava,
Yes.
It's Russ Williams. How are you?
Hey, Russ.
Hope everyone can hear me okay. Elaine has asked me to go ahead and talk on this issue. So back in July, we developed a pretty detailed request for proposal for the technical housing study with the Housing Coalition's involvement. We had a big input session in July. There was a lot of detail in what we wanted to put in the RFP, landlord survey, a lot of specific demographic data. So we did prepare that RFP and we got it out into the consulting community. We included small women-owned and minority-owned business certified agencies in that RFP, and we mailed it out with a deadline of September 18th to return it, and nobody returned it. So what we did was we went back this week to the selection committee for that project and asked them if they would like us to contact these agencies directly, which we have been doing all week. And that's where we're at with that. We're hoping to get some feedback from them. We tried to narrow the scope when we reached out this second time to just what the requirements were from Virginia Housing on the issue. And we're hopeful that we will receive some positive, some estimates that we can take back to the selection committee and then move forward with the project.
Thank you, Russ. Were any universities, did you guys reach out to any universities with this?
No, we have not, but we would certainly take that into consideration at this point, because we're just right now trying to get some good estimates back that will fit into the budget for the project.
What is the budget?
I believe it's $30,000 total for the grant, but that does not include any administrative costs that we might incur. So that's where we're at with this.
So where is the DHCD match right now? Where are we with that portion?
Okay, Northampton County had requested an extension a couple weeks back to complete the initial activities, and because we got about halfway through that before we
Governor and the First Lady are positive for COVID.
Okay. That's bad news. Anyway.
Well, we'll carry on.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of a stunner. So they had requested this extension for completion of initial activities because we were only a little bit more than halfway in getting those things done. We have not heard back on that yet, but we've pressed forward in forming a management team so we can hit the ground running as soon as we get to go ahead on that, on the match.
So what is help me to understand, what would be the divide between the scope of work for Virginia Housing and the scope of work for the DHCD portion of the funding? What's the distinction there in the
My understanding of it is the technical data will be garnered from the Virginia Housing portion of it. The DHCD portion will be to develop an overall regional housing study for the community. It's yet to be determined what exactly we would include in that, but we're on our way with the technical part, and we're just hoping to hear back soon and get going again on the DHCD part.
Okay. Okay. When we meet again, I guess at the next quarterly meeting in a couple of months, if you could kind of help put this concept together for us, because I guess I'm not clear on, you know, what the deliverable is that we should expect when this is done. At this point, what are the pieces like?
We'll try to put together a detailed answer to your question, Ava, for the coalition next time we meet.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So the next report is for a shore presence for key programs. And I think we were going to hear from Caroline Bott. We've heard some of it, but I guess we'll get a little bit more detail from Caroline Bott in her report on this. Thank you. Caroline, you still with us? Caroline? I don't know where she is. Let's see if she's here with us. I don't see her here, but the long and short of it is, I think.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're here? Okay.
Hey, Ava, can you hear me?
So it looks like she's there, but she's not able to speak on the phone for audio, is what she's saying in the chat. You're on mute, Ava.
Hey, I'll try this. Can you hear me through the computer?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. She can't see us. Let me tell her, yes, we can hear her.
Okay, you can hear me through the computer?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna get off the phone then, and I'll give this a try. But my internet's unstable, which is why I joined by the phone. So give me a thumbs down if you can't hear me, but I'll give it a shot. So yes, actually, Congresswoman Loria, did give us the update that really I had prepared, which was that, we've been working with the Rural Development Office in Cortland. I know that Beth Green has been moved up to the DC office. She was the state director. So now we're working with the acting director, Terry Rosta, and they've informed us that they are, including this in their coming year budget to propose reopening the office here in the Eastern Shore. And so, we stand ready to help in any way we can, through our legislative team in the DC office, here on the shore, whatever we can do to make that possible, because we understand how important it would be, to have those resources back here locally for our community. So, I do check in with them on a pretty much monthly basis, but it sounds like, they've got to take some action on their end. So we are just continuing to follow up with them as best we can. And, we'll continue to keep you updated during the quarterly meetings, whenever we have any more action or activity to share. Did that come through okay?
It did. Thank you for that. Thank you. Absolutely. So we had, there were one of our committees, let me go back. So one of our committees was the private sector committee on collaborative resources. And in that committee, one of the things that we talked about was land use issues. The private sector developers wanted to focus on land use matters. There was a proposal that we met a couple of months ago and put together the framework for a proposal to talk about multi family development and some of the things that they thought would be helpful in fast tracking multi-family development on the shore. I sent it to Northampton County, and I'm not sure, I have not heard back from them, but I was wondering if there's anything that the folks on the Planning Commission would like to share about any work that they're doing around kind of removing barriers to development on the shore in Northampton County in particularly, because that was kind of where the focus went for the committee.
This is
and I see Janet's hand.
This is Janet. That's one of the things we're talking about possibly for in our land use for town edge and livable communities. That's the most likely and the most common sense place to put multifamily because of accessibility to transportation and amenities like shopping and of course walkability, open space. That's what we're in the process of discussing right now for town edge areas. Did I come through?
You did. Thank you very much.
I can't tell on I can't tell, so
yeah, you did. Thank you very much. And so now we're gonna hold on somebody. And now our final update is going to come from Chris Thompson, and it's going to be about the work, one of the goals that we had around building local capacity to do development and construction on the shore for housing organizations. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Ava, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I was getting ready for this presentation, just looking back over my notes from past meetings with Ava and the coalition and the team, and it's really amazing to hear everything that's been accomplished since what I consider the kickoff on this journey, dating back to July of 2019, so just about a year ago, back in Onancock. And while not part of the local capacity effort, I mean, it was just 4 to 5 weeks ago that Ava and part of this committee had pulled together a housing resources meeting to try to connect renters and prospective home buyers to those resources that are available. So you can just see there's been a lot of work that's been happening in just this past year. And so, yeah, I've seen a whole lot of energy, a lot of momentum. It's really been exciting to be part of this effort. And I'll take a couple of minutes to go through some of the things we've been talking about in terms of trying to build local capacity. You've heard from some of the organizations I'm going to mention already, but there's already a number of mission-driven groups and organizations already serving residents on the Eastern Shore, from Habitat for Humanity, New Road Development, the Redevelopment Housing Authority, Bayview, Mary Nottingham Smith, the Area Agency on Aging, and more. They're already a good network that's in place to help meet some of the needs here. And so with this group around capacity building, the question's been, how can we pull these organizations together so they can better achieve their mission and ultimately better address housing and community development challenges in the region? So to that point, one of the first things the coalition did recently was to ask for some feedback in terms of what was needed in order to get projects started. And the results of that survey found that training, technical assistance, as well as staffing support were all identified. So kind of taking that information, the coalition, really led by Ava, along with us at Virginia Housing, members from Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, and LISC. And I think Andy from LISC is on the phone, and I'd ask him to chime in as well. But for those not familiar with LISC, that's a national organization, the Local Initiative Support Corporation. And they're one of the country's largest social enterprises and support projects and programs to help revitalize communities and bring greater economic opportunity to residents. And so we just recently have been able to bring LISC into this conversation, and it's really helped start us thinking about ways that we can partner together. So when we've been looking at, how do we address some of those needs, the coalition surfaced with the survey, and how do we chart a path forward? We started thinking about three key areas to look at. So the first, I would say, is more around being able to identify and assess organizational capacity. So basically, mapping and evaluating the needs of organizations to better understand what skills and abilities they have, as well as where there's an opportunity to supplement what's already in place. So, doing this capacity mapping can help us, determine strengths and weaknesses, as well as the organization's priorities, and really figure out what is needed to help achieve those objectives. The second part we've been talking about is training and technical assistance, and how we can ultimately bring some of that to the region. So I would say, LISC, Housing and Community Development, Virginia Housing, we all have in-house training programs. And plus, we often partner with other trainers in the housing development field to bring in subject matter experts as needed. And we've looked at a number of different delivery models, everything from 1 to 2 day courses to more longer intensive engagements. But all of this training and technical assistance would be geared at how we can strengthen capacity and create the infrastructure and network to be able to identify, build, and deliver what is needed to help support more housing opportunities. So far we've talked about how we can assess capacity. We're talking about how we can address those needs through training and technical assistance. And the third area we've focused on are financial resources to help support project development. And there are some resources that I would say all three of us bring to the table, from LISC, DHCD, as well as Virginia Housing. Plus, we would be looking at doing some other outreach to organizations, both locally and at the state level, to see how we can bring some of those resources to bear. But we want to look at, once we have an idea, how can we take that idea for a potential project and move it forward? Whether it's supporting activities like market studies or building feasibility analysis or even site planning. Those are resources that we do have available. So once we start coupling together the capacity building with project identification, then we want to start looking at how we were able to take those and move them forward. So that's kind of a brief summary of where we are so far. We've been meeting pretty regularly, especially in the last couple of weeks, to start developing what that concept would look like. And these have all been really good conversations. And so excited about the direction we're headed in. And with that, Ava, I'm finished with my report out. But again, I did want to recognize that we do have a representative from LISC with us as well. And so, Andy, if there's anything you'd like to add, I'm sure everyone would be happy to listen.
I'm glad to talk for a few minutes. Good morning, everyone. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you, Ava and Chris. A little bit about Rural LISC. It's a division of Local Initiative Support Corporation. We currently work with 92 nonprofits across rural America, basically being LISC rural arm. The capacity mapping initiative that we want to try to figure out how to bring to LISC is a diagnostic tool we've been using for about 20 years to map the current capacity of an organization, working in partnership with CDCs to determine a path for growth. It's not a grade, it's just a matter of see where you are. So to try to summarize what Chris said very well in 30 seconds, it's a way to kind of evaluate where you are. It can guide how we could figure out training for you. And training for small rural nonprofits is something we've done. There are other people like NeighborWorks, Housing Assistance Council we have connections to, and we can figure out the best path for you there. And then on the back end, you want to get to projects and activities. The way we work with some member groups, and one of our groups that does have some coverage in your area is NCall, is we do loans, grants, and TA to those groups. We provide some small pre-development funding. We have a very large, we're a CDF5, we have a very large loan fund that can provide construction and sometimes mini-perm financing. We have subsidiaries, National Equity Fund, which does low-income housing tax credits. We have a division that does new markets tax credits. We have a division that does small business. We actually have a comprehensive community development model. I'm just a housing guy, so it's hard for me to keep all this stuff in my head. But there's a lot of things on the menu that we could eventually bring to communities we're working in. We have a program with the NFL for football fields. Right now we're doing baseball fields in Puerto Rico. And now these are funder driven. We're an intermediary. We raise funds and bring them to local communities. So I don't want to get too big of a wish list going, but just the idea of the things that could eventually happen. One of the congresswomen mentioned broadband. We have a digital navigator program, which is something I like to think about for this area. We're supporting digital navigators to work with people to better access the internet and continue to make a case to help make a case for broadband investment. We have a partnership with the National RCAPS on a little application for your phone called Test It to properly measure internet service, because the FCC service isn't quite right. We have a division that does small business lending. We have, right now, if you look at our website, you see a lot of small business grants that we're doing with an emphasis on minority and women small businesses. Those are things you should look up and apply for. So as we develop this relationship and can figure out how to have a presence down there, and while my specialty is housing, there are other things on the list menu that could eventually kind of come in for comprehensive community development. So I'm very curious to just know what everybody's doing, so we can try to match efforts and outcomes. Love to eventually figure out how to work with groups down there. I have had long conversations with NCall, who has a lot of capacity, has done some projects down there, and they are open to partnering or technical assistance with folks down there as well. I mean, that could be a way to get a few things going while we work on this process. So there are lots of things available. I'm on the board of the Housing Assistance Council, which specializes a little more in emerging groups, and I could work on getting them down there too, as well. So look forward to a lot of ways to figuring out how to get involved down there. And happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Ava, you're on mute. Mute.
Thank you. I am muted. I do that.
I do that too.
So thank you for that, Andres. And we are so grateful to have Rural List to join this conversation about building capacity on the shore. In fact, I think, Bobby Joe can correct me, I think it was InCall that suggested that we possibly reach out to you, and then Chris made the initial contact. And so I'm glad that we have been able to bring this conversation full circle and have you join us. And if there is a way that you can, kind of rejoin InCall to this conversation, we are looking forward to that possibility. At this time, I was sharing with Chris in the inbox that I saved that conversation for the that update for the final update, because I think it was a great segue into our presenter today. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Auburn University Rural Studio, but it is a phenomenal story. And Sam Maccabee's story of how he founded the All Rural Studio, and then how Rusty Smith, who is here with us today, kind of has taken up the mantle and moved that phenomenal work across the Southeast region of the United States is just extraordinary. And I hope that at some point we would be able to find a way to have that talent here on the shore. There's someone in our messages Camden, who is talking about the importance of design. And so I also share some of those positions that he shares, and I hope that Rusty will be able to address some of these things in his presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rusty Smith from the Auburn University Rural Studio. And if you need to share, let me know if you are. I think I made the settings so that all participants can share, but if you're having trouble, let me know.
Hey, Ava, thank you. I would like to share my screen, but it still says that it's disabled.
Okay. So let me fix
so while you're working on that,
okay.
I can start to talk a little bit about the work that we do. Thank you, Ava, for being here. It's a real for allowing us to be here. It's a real honor and humbled with such a group. The capacity that's represented here is amazing. I apologize in advance. I'm joining you from my basement. We're having a little bit of a weather here due to Cyclone Beta. I know it's headed your guys' way if it's not there already. So I hope everybody stays safe. If I disappear, it may be because we've lost power, but we'll soldier on.
I am trying to set you up to be able to share, and I don't know. I can't seem to find the. Hold on.
If you.
I can do it from my phone.
I think there should be an up arrow next to your share screen down at the bottom.
That's what okay. But I'm trying to figure out where it allows others. The participant thing is normally in the meeting section. I don't know. Let me see. There we go. Multiple advanced sharing options. Here we go. Who can share? All participants. Okay, you should be ready to go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So let's get that going. So hopefully you all can see that. Is that a thumbs up if you can? Hopefully. Good. So I am going to talk a little bit about Rural Studio, and again, we're really tickled to be here and look forward to finding ways that we might be able to work with you all in any way that might be useful to you, because we share a lot of similarities and interests relative to housing affordability and equitable access. It's really great to sort of follow on the discussion. I've been able to change my presentation even a number of times to begin to address some of the issues that have come up, hopefully, and offer us an opportunity to speak about some of those things. Rules. I'm going to talk a little bit about Rural Studio, just tiny little background and context, but I do want to get to our housing affordability work at the end and how we're sort of addressing some of those issues more broadly. Rural Studio is a design build program. It's part of Auburn University's architecture program, in which our students, who are all undergraduate students, leave the campus for anywhere from 1 semester to up to 2 years of their 5 years of undergraduate study, and live in residence 3 hours away in rural West Alabama. And as part of that program, the students both design and build all kinds of community infrastructure, everything from, of course, single-family houses to much larger community infrastructure that I'll share a little bit with you about today. The program was founded on just a handful of really simple premises. The first of which is that the best way to learn how to do things is by actually doing them. The second is that when you're trying to do really difficult things, the best way to do that is to do them together. So the program is extraordinarily collaborative, both amongst the students as well as our community members and our external consultants. And then finally, and probably most importantly, that would resonate with all of you here, is that that access to equitable, dignified, high-performing houses and other designed infrastructure is an inalienable human right. That design is a well-designed living environments is something that everyone deserves access to, whether they can afford it or not. We're located in a region known as the Black Belt. The Black Belt of Alabama is comprised predominantly of a number of persistently impoverished counties. And as many of you know, that is a technical federal designation that means that 20% or more of a given county has lived consistently and persistently in poverty for 30 years or more. Interestingly, those persistently impoverished counties, there's about 370 to 380 of them in the United States, and they extend from the western Rio Grande Valley in the Colonias area across the delta of Louisiana and Mississippi through the Black Belt of Alabama, and then they generally take a sharp turn north through Appalachia. Over 85% of those counties are rural, so this issue of persistent poverty is a particularly rural issue. While all of these areas are different, sort of ethnographically, historically, culturally, and geologically, they all share sort of similar histories of being these kind of historic landscapes of extraction, where resources have been taken literally out of the ground through human labor, and very little, if any, resources have been put back. This place that we work in West Alabama is a place of great wealth, both financially and historically and architecturally, but it's also a place of absolute abject poverty. The Harris House that you see here is the home that one of some of our first clients, the Harris families, were living in almost 30 years ago when Rural Studio was founded. And the truth today, almost 3 decades later, is that while there's not that many tar paper shacks left in our area anymore, this is what's replaced it, the kind of secondhand 30, 40, 50, and even 60-year-old trailer home. This is our housing competition, and it's extraordinarily tough competition. It doesn't look like much, but it's tough. What might be somewhat familiar to many of you, this is often what our landscape looks like. This looks like a natural disaster. It's not. It's just springtime in Forkland, Alabama. And I share this to sort of talk about these issues of climate change and infrastructure and how they impact the way that we live, particularly in these extraordinarily vulnerable communities today. It's also to say that while we are, fairly good at responding to very fast-acting natural disasters, we need to have that same attitude towards the housing crisis and recognize that it is a disaster. It is a long-going, slow-motion disaster, and we have to mobilize to address it in similar ways. This is the place where we live and work in New Bern, Alabama. It's a thriving metropolis, and I mean that not as a joke, seriously, of 186 people. It is a little urban development in West Alabama. This is our downtown area. We're fortunate in that we have some really vital community infrastructure here. We have both a grocery store, GB's Mercantile on the right, and we have a federal building, a post office that's still open and operating today in our town. And these resources are extraordinarily important in these small communities. This is the building that we work in our architecture program. It's called the Red Barn. If you're familiar with architecture programs, it'll look pretty traditional to any of you in how we work. Our students live in residence with us on campus. We have a series of dormitories that the students have built. This is underneath the super shed. Some of you that know the history of Rural Studio will know that we have a long history of material experimentation. We don't experiment on our clients. We experiment on ourselves first and learn from those experiments. And these are just some of the examples of the student work. Our students are like students anywhere. They're neat and tidy and studious and hardworking, just like anywhere. If you know the history of the Rural Studio, you know that we were started almost 30 years ago, really beginning to think about access to housing in our community. And these are just a couple of the houses that were designed and built in those early days. Thank you. They try to be responsive to the community and the landscape, and they were all designed with a particular family in a particular context in a particular location in mind. And we continue to do this kind of work that's sort of very client focused even today. This is what our students, typical class of students will look like any group of students you might expect at a university. When they come out and join us, one of the first things that they'll engage in is what we refer to as neck down work. So we know when you go to university, working at university is all about developing knowledge. We think that there's something even more important than that when we begin to deal with these issues, and that's sort of what we just refer to as know-how. So the transference of knowledge developed on campus into know-how through action and experience really is one of the key actions of Rural Studio in these young people's sort of education. All of the work is real. It's all designed and built by young people somewhere between the ages of 19 and 22 years old. We have real clients with real budgets, with real sites, with real contexts, and hopefully with real impacts. This is just an example of how our students work. Here they're working with Rosalie Turner, who was living in a home that was literally falling down around her. She had 2 adult sons that had been displaced out of their home. And the students here are working with Rosalie to kind of understand from her what they could do to begin to actually provide housing that would allow Rosalie to bring her family back living together again. We do work with a variety of external consultants, whether architects, engineers, environmental consultants, social consultants, you name it. Our students are fortunate enough to be able to work in sort of a professional practice-based experience with these consultants to get input. And ultimately through that work, the students learn everything that they need to know about how not just they might design a project, but how they actually might specify it and ultimately build it. And then the students do build it. This is a typical example of how we work. Again, this is Rosalie Turner's house. It's her little white house. You see that to the left. And the idea is really simple. It's working in a replacement house model where the students propose to leave Rosalie sheltered in place in her existing yet substandard structure and build her new home in 2 phases. Build the first phase, move Rosalie out of her existing house. When the first phase is complete, tear the little existing house down, and then add the second addition onto the home that would allow her sons to move back in. This is the home under construction. This is Allie. She's sort of putting up sort of a brick firewall, and you see all of the wood interior on this house. This came from those barns that I briefly showed you that the students were dismantling. And then ultimately, this is the interior of the house on the day Rosalie and her sons were able to move back in. Prominently featured in the home is a front porch, whether in our single family homes or our public buildings. The front porch features as a very prominent and important social space and environmental space and cultural space. The home as it is today, here, of course, the house wasn't finished after they moved in. Here you can see the little house in the top left corner where they were living. The week Rosalie and her sons moved back into the first part of the house, the students tore down the existing house, and then ultimately built this wing that you see to the left that even though the house is very small, established a very generous courtyard space for the students for the family to expand and live within. We, of course, don't just develop single-family housing projects, although that's what we're here to talk about today. I want to share a little bit, really quickly, some of the broader context in which we work. Our students are engaged in all kinds of community work. This is Antioch Baptist Church. That was, you can see the sort of steps to the left. The existing church had been washed off its foundations in the flood. A team of 4 of our students proposed to design and build a new church. This is the interior of that church, much like Rosalie's house, rebuilt out of the existing material from the original church. A lot of work like this, a pavilion in Perry Lakes Park. Much larger projects like this, a volunteer fire station for New Bern, again designed and built by 4 students. You can see the 4 students here raising these sort of wooden structural bents that become the structural system for the fire station. This is the fire station today. It was the first building that was built in New Bern in 110 years, and not only did it provide sort of a place to house fire trucks, but it also provided a space for the community to meet, which facilitated reconstitution of the town council, elected a new mayor, and ultimately sort of the town outgrew the shared community space of the fire station. And the next building that was designed and built in New Bern was a town hall, which began to provide not just a place for the town to meet, but also a place to keep records, and most importantly became a consecrated place to vote. Not to give a history of West Alabama, but it sort of figures very prominently in the sort of living history of the ongoing civil rights movement. And this sort of access to voting is still a real issue where we live and work. Another kind of typical project, 4 students, about a year into their work, they've just proposed, they've just met with their client, which is a local Boys and Girls Club in Greensboro. They've shown through a model that they know everything they need to know about how they can frame this very large building out of wood. About half a year further on, they're a little sweatier and a little grubbier. This is them with that building actually under construction. So moving from this sort of model to real construction is an important part of the program. And ultimately the project as it is today, here you can see it features, again, this very prominent, in this case, a back porch that becomes sort of a covered playground, or play area for the Boys and Girls Club. And of course, providing much needed after school opportunities for the youth in the community. Another community project, an abandoned bank building in New Bern, Alabama, that 4 students designed and renovated into a library project, bringing obviously sort of educational resources, but even more importantly, high-speed internet to New Bern, Alabama, the place where we work. So even in these rural places where we are as Auburn University, we've lived and worked until just a couple of years ago without high-speed internet ourselves. I share this work in trying to talk about the context of housing affordability because we find it very difficult to pull these issues apart in these rural places. The fire station is probably one of the easiest ways to begin to talk about that. If we're trying to solve for housing affordability issues in our community, why are we spending energy and much needed resources to design and build a fire station for New Bern? Well, it's pretty simple, albeit complex. If you don't have adequate fire protection in your community, houses burn down at an inordinate rate. And if houses burn down at an inordinate rate in your community, you can't get fire protection or homeowners insurance. If you can't get homeowners insurance, you can't get a mortgage. And if you can't get a mortgage, it pushes you right into chattel or personal property of these second and third hand trailer homes. It becomes the only option. So no matter what work we do as architects, whether we design the building this way or we design the building that way, it doesn't serve any purpose unless we begin to sort of think more broadly about the systemic nature of and addressing all challenges that address housing affordability. We've had, as I shared, we've had almost 30 years of experience in this sort of dealing with high performance, dignified, affordable housing. We've designed and built over 200 projects ourselves in our own little 5-county service area. And over those years, we've learned a lot about what it means to sort of operate in this space. First and foremost, the things that you have to deal with when you're trying to think about housing affordability is your houses have to be durable, buildable, weatherproof, and secure. If you're not addressing these issues, you may be doing good things, but you're probably not addressing housing affordability. This, however, is just the floor. It's just the foundation. These attitudes are not aspirational. We also believe that it's important, in addition to be aspirational in our proposals, and that housing should have a sense of presence. It should contribute directly to the fostering of community in the locations in which it's provided. It should intentionally contribute to both the health and wellness of not just the occupants of the homes, but the individuals who build and maintain and repair the homes. In our communities of need, particularly in these rural places, and we might be able to talk about that a little later, these issues of accommodation, whether it's aging in place or sheltering in place, are extraordinarily important in these rural places. And then finally, even though we've developed this series of houses to be able to be delivered with locally easily available material, available knowledge and know-how, they have to be well crafted and they have to perform really well. So that's some of the work that we do in our own area, in our own space. We're currently working through an initiative that we call the Front Porch Initiative, where we are working to provide our access to our housing products and our technical assistance to develop scalable and resilient processes that allow other housing providers to deliver high performance, dignified homes in their own service area. So Rural Studio in our area, we work completely in a charity model. So we work with folks that under no circumstances would ever be able to provide housing for themselves. So we design and gift our houses to our community members. Through that work and the knowledge that we've gained, we're now seeking to provide that knowledge and technical assistance to external housing providers in other regions in the US where it might be useful. As part of that project, we have 4 housing prototypes that we developed. They're all named after the first client who lived in the first prototypical house. All of these homes are small 1- and 2-bedroom houses. They're small, but they're not tiny. They can be titled as real. They're titled as real property, and they can be lived in normally, just as you might expect. They're just extraordinarily efficient. This is Dave's house, MacArthur's house, Joanne's house, and Buster's house. So what we're doing in this space currently is that we've developed a tremendous amount of knowledge, as we talked about what to build. And we provide that technical assistance and in that know-how that we can actually begin to show our housing providers, our external housing providers, we show them what to build. We are working with a number of housing providers currently around the rural Southeast. These are just a couple of examples of homes that were built in Chattahoochee Hills, Georgia. And what we've learned from that is that very often when we're dealing with housing affordability, we get really focused on what a house costs to build. Everybody wants to know, what does that cost? And that's a really, really important question. But perhaps more importantly, what we found, at least what's more useful, begin to kind of understanding the challenges that we face relative to affordability, is really to ask, what does a house afford? What does a house afford a homeowner? What does it afford a lender? What does it afford an insurer? And if we can begin to think about affordability across the total cost of homeownership, then we can really begin to operate in a broader context of solutions. So what do I mean about that total cost of homeownership? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Our homeowners don't lose their houses because they can't afford their mortgage. and I'll say that again because that sort of startles some folks. Our homeowners don't lose their houses because they can't afford their mortgage. They lose their houses more typically because of one of four things. They'll lose their house because they'll have an unexpected energy bill. We live in a place where we can have an energy bill in March or April that's, $45 to $50 a month. And then we'll have it in July or August, we'll have an energy bill that's $350 a month. And you haven't done anything differently. The house was the same comfort level, the same humidity level, the same temperature, and so on. And oh, guess what? You owe that money. So these sort of wildly fluctuating energy bills put a tremendous demand on our homeowners. The second thing that happens is our homeowners will have an unexpected maintenance or repair bill. So we live right in Tornado Alley and in the catcher's mitt of the Gulf Coast, much like today. Every storm that comes up through the Gulf Coast turns into a tropical storm right on top of us. So particularly these sort of weather-related events that are increasing as folks where you are particularly know, this issue of resilience and durability causes a big impact on our families. The third thing that happens is we'll have a unexpected healthcare event in our families' lives. And the fourth thing that happens is a sort of a disruption in our family's community network. So those are vast and complex and important to our community's resilience. Very often our homeowners are living in economy, sort of part-time work economies and sharing economies where they share everything, whether it's food, housing, transportation, childcare, elder care, you name it. That sharing amongst our kinship networks, as we refer to our settlements, really is what provides a tremendous amount of resiliency to our families. But any disruption in that can cause challenges across multiple generations from financial well-being. So anything that we can do in this space of housing affordability as architects to begin to think about efficiency, resilience and durability, well-being, and strengthening of communities, all of those things are the things that begin to increase economic security. So these are the things that housing can really do beyond just trying to cost less, and those become really important. So we offer to our housing providers, we offer a number of resources. We have a process that we go through that begins to allow our housing providers to assess the value of these different performance areas and make good both quantitative and qualitative decisions for their homeowners. We work with housing providers where it's most successful that can provide an integrated delivery model where all aspects of the housing provisioning can be integrated tightly. That becomes really important because we believe this integration is probably one of the most important keys to unlocking affordability. This is an example of a project that we work with Habitat for Humanity chapters quite a bit. This house was built to both Passive House Standard, which was the highest energy performance standard you can build a home to today, and also Fortified Gold Standard, which is the highest resilient and durability standard you can build a home to today. As a matter of record, it's the only home in the United States built to both of these standards, and that's because it's pretty hard. If you have some questions about that, we can talk about it. But what this provides is a different way of thinking about how of what affordability means. That same house built to conventional standards, not these beyond code high performance standards. This is the kind of model that Habitat would have put together. The house would have built to contemporary code standards. That house would have had a mortgage of about $250. It would have a utility bill of about $150, and it would have had an insurance bill of about $60 for a total monthly cost of homeownership of $460. What we did was, of course, when we upgraded that home, we increased the cost of the home instead of decreasing it, which increased the mortgage. And suddenly you can begin to see that this home moved from a $250 mortgage, which was affordable, to a $343 mortgage that effectively made that home unaffordable to the homeowner. But something else happened. When you actually begin to look at the total cost, we were able to reduce the energy bill to $35 a month and the insurance bill to $48 a month because of the enhanced durability of the home, which ultimately saved the homeowner $34 a year. $34 a month. So the question becomes, which home is more affordable, the home that costs less to build or the home that costs more to build? Obviously, you know what our answer might be. These are some of the partners. Obviously, we can't do this kind of work alone. These are some of the partners that we're working with, all that have a vested interest and kind of influence in this space. These partners working together, leveraging their collective kind of areas of influence, are really the key to sort of making projects like this happen. So I'm gonna hush up there, and if you'd like, I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Rusty. We have about 5 minutes for questions before we will have to get ready to go into our small groups. So if there are any questions, do people have any questions, please raise your hands now. I'm gonna, Rusty, ask Rusty if you'll take that down so I can see people. Yeah, there we go. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hands. Now, I think I saw Camden Whitehead. Yep, there you are, who had some questions during the presentation. The floor is yours.
Hi, Rusty. Thank you so much for the presentation. You're welcome. I visited the Rural Studio maybe 10 years ago when Andrew, I guess Andrew had taken over directorship from Mr. Mockbee. And there seems to be this transition that's happened, or an evolution, I guess, that from, you know, the houses that were done when Sam Mockbee started the studio were very much one of a kind, almost pieces of sculpture. I guess I would say they were full of heart and soul. And then there was this transition of during Andrew's time of you know, a house that was really sort of what, I don't know, the houses I saw were ones with breezeways through them that were, it seemed to be sort of a transition from what Sam was doing to what you're now doing today, which I would say seem a little less inspired, but much more pragmatic. And so I just would like to hear you talk about that transition. And part of it seems like you're scaling up and trying to do this on a much broader spectrum, rather than Sam sort of treating an individual situation. And I wonder what you see as the impact of scale there, and both advantages and disadvantages.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Cameron. So, Camden, it's a great question, one that we talk a lot about, both internally and externally. But being 30 years on in the program, so it's not, we don't sort of see it as a transition, but it is a sort of an expansion, and the program has expanded in any number of ways. And I think in some ways that expansion of scope is really about kind of where the is investigating where the boundaries of architecture is, sort of, you know, what role do we as architects play in these really complex situations? Because I can tell you, in our experience, these issues that we face, in this case, we're talking about housing affordability, but we're invested in issues of energy, of food insecurity, of health and wellness, education, you know, all of the insecurities that our communities face, of which housing is central. It's really beginning to understand what role we play. Because these issues are not brick and mortar problems. It's one of the real frustrations, I think, of architects. So we think about what role do architects play in this discussion, because it's really these other kind of partners that can begin to address structural barriers, programmatic barriers, legislative barriers, policy barriers. All of those things are really important, but they're invisible. Their impact in these issues actually become visible in the built environment. they become visible in architecture. And so in some ways, what we do as architects is take those sort of invisible vectors and connection points and challenges and make them visible so that the folks that actually can begin to understand the impact, the positive impacts of changes that they make, and bring their area of influence to the table can resonate. So to address, so broadening the scope of role of architects and designers in the discussion beyond just saying, well, this is what the building looks like, or that's what the building looks like, hopefully brings more of our strength to bear in the topic. We still do the work that you sort of referenced. There is just a sort of an expansion of the work. The single family home that's designed for the specific individual is still very much a key component of our work, and we continue to do that work. It affects the design decisions that we do and the work that I'm sharing with you today relative to housing affordability, in understanding the real needs of folks that live in houses, but ultimately do have to be able to be provided by other folks in a more direct and efficient manner in their own service areas that likely don't have the capacity that we have to design and build, to take 2 years to design and build one house for one family in their location. We do operate in a feedback loop relative to that work. This work informs that, and that work informs this. But it's much broader and a much more complex operation. You're absolutely right than where we were historically, and it's one that we wonder about on a almost daily basis. Living out on the edges of what architects' responsibilities are is fundamental to what my good friend Sambo Mokbey was about 30 years ago, and it's what we try to be about today as we work in our both communities as well as broader communities like we're here talking to in the Eastern Shore of Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you. Was there anyone else? I think I saw Phil, Reverend Phil, with a question. Are you still here with us? You had some questions about funding and how this is all done. Are you still here with us? I don't know if he's here. But maybe you can just speak to that, Rusty.
Yeah, so there's probably kind of a curiosity about how we fund our work, and there's probably a more useful interest in how our housing partners fund their work. So at Real Studio, we're funded in a number of ways. We historically have been significantly funded through direct philanthropy. So whether individuals or private foundations supporting the work, which is sort of interesting for a university to use that kind of philanthropic funding to actually do applied research work. We also are funded at Real Studio through sort of state, regional, and national, federal grants, as well as research contracts. So just like any research institution, we'd be funded that way. So for instance, the technical assistance that we're able to offer to our broader housing partners currently around the Southeast, that's funded through a research project by Fannie Mae, USDA, and Wells Fargo, amongst several others, they're the organizations that allow us to provide our technical assistance at no charge to sort of under-resourced housing providers working in these areas. Our housing providers, they operate across a host of funding platforms. Some through, we operate with a number of faith-based organizations. Habitat for Humanity, of course, is the largest of those, not often recognized as a faith-based organization, but so those sorts of fundings. We work with folks who are funded through CRA. We're working with folks that are funded through USDA, whether they're utilizing 502 direct or guaranteed loan programs. We're working with folks that are using HPG funds in really interesting ways, and as well as block grant funding. So, you know, our housing providers are funded in the same ways that many of your housing providers are funded. What we're able to do very often is to actually bring other kinds of folks to the table that can then begin to help close some gaps in those funding streams. What we found in many housing providers is they've got a process of funding that they understand and they're really good at, but there's gaps that exist. But we get, all of us working in these rural places where we're, you know, kind of very often doing these things ourselves, we don't often have the ability to know what other opportunities that are out there. So particularly working with a lot of our national and federal partners, we're able to sort of at least bring some awareness and technical assistance in that regard in how we might help some of our housing providers leverage their funding resources that they have existing and that they're just sort of good at gaining, and leveraging those into other kind of support funding systems or networks.
Thank you for that, Rusty. And there are a couple more questions about faith-based work with you guys, how you encounter zoning, and how an organization participates in the program. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is to hold those questions till the end, because we have to kind of make another shift into the breakout sessions.
You got it.
And Rusty's going to stick around with us, and he'll be around to answer those questions that you have towards the end. But we have to do some work to plan for next year. We've had, as you can see, as I think someone said, we got a lot done over the last 12 months as a community. But I think it was Chris or Eric that said, but there is still so much more to do. I think we laid the foundation to be able to position ourselves in the coming year to actually see some houses on the ground as a result of our efforts over the past 12 months. So what I'd like us to do, I've asked us to go into 4 breakout sessions. One is about nonprofit capacity building, and I'm asking Chris Thompson, who has worked with us over the past several months, to kind of facilitate that and get your feedback to share with us on your ideas for what we can do over the next 12 months. There is a Shore Resources breakout session that I'm asking Ramona Chapman to facilitate and do the same thing. Get your ideas for what you'd like to see over the next 12 months in program resources that either are underutilized on the shore or are not on the shore, and you'd like to see them come to the shore. Where do you believe we are not realizing our full potential in mobilizing resources to invest in affordable housing on the shore, and what would you like to see us do better in terms of galvanizing resources for the shore? The third conference is the smallest one, because I really just put those folks who worked on the conference before in there. If you find that you're in one of the other committees and you'd like to help, we need all the help we can get to plan for the next conference. Please join that one. Let me know, give me a message in the bottom and say, hey, I'm in this one, but I'd like to go over and help with the housing conference for next year. We'd certainly appreciate that. The last one is our government committee. So that's where we would discuss the comp plan, the climate change issues that I've heard come up repeatedly from those of you who work in government, those of you who are committed to how we are, the design questions that I heard, the land use restrictions, anything that you want to talk about, the housing study, things that we can do to better position ourselves for the next 12 months to remove barriers and to get in position to build more housing, that is the place that I'm asking for you to go for that breakout session. It's only going to be about 25, 30 minutes long. So I'm going to ask if I'll facilitate the last one, and I'm going to ask you to kind of just get your ideas out there, get some discussions, and we're going to come back together in about 25 to 30 minutes to get some feedback, answer some final questions, and bid each other adieu for 2020 until we meet in our next quarterly meeting for the coalition for those who attend. So I'm going to open the sessions, the breakout rooms now. And here are the questions. I'm going to share this screen now. Here are the questions that I'm asking you to answer. Hold on. Share screen. So for your facilitators, here is the question. I don't know how to make that thing big because I don't want a slideshow. I just want to look at that one slide. But here it is. Can you guys see it? Have I shared it? The questions that I'd like to ask right now are, what are some action items that you would like to see accomplished under the context of the group that you're in over the next 12 months? Are there any goals beyond the 6 that were set in 2019 on which you believe this coalition should focus? And which committee are you willing to commit some time? And you'll recall that the committees were the Committee on Government, which is where we came up with the housing study that we got done. That's where we worked on the comp plan reviews. That's where we did the land use conversations. The second goal was the capacity building, and that's where we actually came up with this concept for capacity building for the shore, the capacity building training initiative that Chris talked about. The next issue is the shore resources and private sector collaboration. The shore resources was about what I just said, resources that are not being utilized to their fullest potential on the shore, or resources that are not on the shore that we like to see on the shore, like Rusty, like Rural Lisk, like others. Let's do some talking about how we can maximize the resources that are available to our benefit. And the other was the private sector collaboration. I think for today, we'll do that in the conversation is being held in the government group because the private sector group largely focused on land use restrictions in the region. But if there are other areas that people would like to focus, identify those goals for the coming year and let us know if we are not covering all of our bases in the goals that we worked on in the previous year. So those are the breakout sessions that I'm asking for folks to, I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the thing. Where is it? Am I here? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay. I am, okay. So, and now I'm trying to find the screen. I'm going to stop sharing and take us back to the breakout sessions. Is this, are my facilitators clear about what information we're trying to get from the groups in the next few minutes? Okay, thank you. See you back in a few. Let's see. Everyone should be in a group. And now I'm going to join. I think I am here with everyone. So what we were able to work on last year with this committee, there were a couple things. The comp plan for both counties came up as important pieces for our work last year, because Northampton County's comp plan was being discussed. As Mike shared, Accomack County's comp plan was not yet up for review, but if he wanted to make sure that if there were things that people thought should be emphasized in the comp plan around housing, Renita, he wanted to make sure that we had those conversations in advance, well enough in advance, so that the recommendations could be vetted and heard and included in the discussion for, you know, Accomack County's next round for its comp plan. Have you guys made any steps to strengthen or expand the language in the comp plan around the county's very strong, what I hear now, commitment to housing in Accomack County? I'm asking.
Is that directed to me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Basically, from what I know, as far as the comp plan is concerned, housing is very important. I think we, as far as the zoning and all of that is concerned, as far as multi-family housing units, I think, you know, is feasible within our comp plan. I think we have identified areas where I guess housing or affordable housing could take place. Like I said, we aren't up right now in our planning commission. I think one of the things the board is going to, especially under my administration, is going to really focus on housing. And I know we, at one time, housing was around towns, as far as businesses where they could have everything accessible, as far as shopping, laundry, or whatever. So, and that's one of the things that I can, if I can recall, I'm trying, my mind is racing. I don't think it's anybody here on our planning. No. So that's all I can remember, but definitely housing is going to be foremost as far as our comp plan is concerned.
Thank you. I know that there have been conversations about strengthening the language around housing in your comp plan. Mike kind of briefly mentioned it. I think at our last conference call that that housing is not prominently discussed in any detail, and that if there were interests, because the comp plan is kind of like a locality's guiding document for its commitments for the time to come, and that because housing kind of needed to be renewed in Accomack County, and you guys are taking the leadership to do that now, that he was open to hearing conversations about how that language could be strengthened. So I guess I would wonder, what could we do in the next 12 months to kind of get that conversation going in Accomack County, so that the citizenry can begin to weigh in around the issue of housing, so that when the time comes for the comp plan to be updated, you know, that language is in place.
I think some of the things that we could do is definitely reach out to our constituency and find out what are their interests. Of course, the group here could be instrumental in so that we have the right language. I know that's important, but you know, to have you know, meetings in different I know one of the things that before COVID hit, some of the things we were going to partner magisterially, magisterial districts like Punkatig Lee, Island District, and so forth and so on. But, you know, in other words, the two supervisors will come together. For instance, let me use the district I represent, the Punkatig District, where Donald represents Election District 8, I represent Election District 9, that we would have meetings. So within each supervisor, and that's one of the things that we were going to implement, of course, you know, but even after post-COVID, hopefully we'll get to a time where we can, even if it maybe has to be virtually, where we can come together and listen to the concerns of our constituents as to what their feeling is as far as housing is concerned, so that we make sure we kind of tap in and do what's best for our county.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Charlie, do you have anything to add in terms of where Northampton County is with its comp plan right now, and anything that we can do as a community in the next 12 months to support or build upon the work that has already started in Northampton?
Yeah, I just want to, you know, I'll just support what the Planning Commission members have been saying. They've been working very diligently on that. One thing is essential is that getting input from the community on the types of housing and the locations of housing that would be desired is critical. That input from people and from residents is critical. Input from people who build houses is critical as to, you know, what their needs are and what they see as buildings or housing that can be built and be affordable here on the shore. So I think, you know, as the Planning Commission continues to work on the comp plan, I think getting input from residents and from people who are involved in housing is critical.
Thank you. So I know that there were some questions about coastal resiliency from, I know Pamela D'Angelo is here with us today from NPR, and Donna Baza from CB's. There have been some conversations about climate change and coastal resiliency and the plans in both counties to address that in the context of its housing strategies. Would either of you like to pose those questions in the framework of the next 12 months? And I'm gonna open it to you, Donna, first. Are you muted?
Mute, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I actually, you know, Janet Sturgis is very up to date on this. You know, I mean, we have to put our zoning where, you know, where housing is sustainable, instead of putting our limited resources, you know, where, you know, in 10, 20, 30 years, it's not going to be viable. So I don't know, Janet, if you wanted to say anything about what the Planning Commission is doing in that area, or Sarah Morgan also knows.
It's
but
not
what we've heard
good.
so far.
Not looking good. From, I don't know if you're familiar with the New York Times article that was recently circulated, and written to explain a paper that had come out, that we may not be looking at 1.5 inches sea level rise. We may be looking beyond that. We may be looking at droughts like we haven't seen before. We had some hint of that in Northampton County this past summer. So we're going to have to be looking at a lot of things to make sure what we do works. And that's one reason that I personally have been advocating for mixed-use development in Town Edge, because then we would be focusing where the infrastructure was where we know we're going to be able to deal with stormwater issues, hopefully, transportation, resiliency, access to amenities. And we're kind of lucky in that we're starting with a clean slate. So with proper planning, we can make sure we do it right. Another thing we have to worry about in Northampton County is access to water. For instance, I know just off the top of my head, we wouldn't want to see any large development go in down Accohonic Neck because we already have a cone of depression there in our aquifer from pumping for agriculture.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of balls in the air. I'm focusing personally on livable communities and town edge. So I think that's where our greatest opportunity is. And I know you're concerned, or I heard your concerns expressed about people coming from off the shore and sort of edging locals out. But we have to remember we may have climate refugees coming. So that's one reason I would like to see mixed demographics in our town edge. I'd like to personally, as a matter of social justice and environmental justice, not to see people separated by income and demographics. That's what a livable community is all about. Do I have any feedback on that from you guys?
I mean, I think that's a principle in which we all can agree.
Yeah.
Principally, yes. I think we all can agree that we would not like to see. I think the only kind of point of concern that I think has historically been the case on the shore, even from the very beginning when we started having the conversation about, you know, minimum lot sizes and things of that sort, was that that the concern was for families who are looking to build, who may want to be kind of in an outlying area and have a little bit of property but can't afford the size property that that the zoning ordinance currently calls for to build a single family. They're kind of forced to live in, so it's kind of having the reverse effect for that demographic, because they are limited in their options for where they can live. And so I think we have to kind of be mindful of that balance. And yes, people do want to be close to resources and close to services, and those things are very important. But in the event that somebody is able to pull together their little resources that they have in their family and go and buy a small parcel kind of out in an outlying area and build their single house, the concern is that they should also have that benefit.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I thought you were through.
No, go ahead.
We're having a discussion right now about what constitutes residential and what constitutes rural. And right now it looks like somebody with a few acres of land in what you're describing as a rural setting would not be able to break that up into smaller lots without being called a subdivision. So we definitely need input from you on that. Of course, then you've come into wastewater treatment and water accessibility. So someone wanting to buy like a half an acre of land or something like that would have to think about a septic tank and drain field and a well. And that's a huge expense going in right there. So maybe, I don't know, maybe a small development would be the way, a small subdivision. I don't know how you'd address that,
right,
and still make it affordable.
Right. And so those are some of the questions that people, so for example, one of the things that the developers talked about in the coalition when we had our private sector developer meeting, they wanted to talk about, I think we had a couple of sessions where Bill Parr joined in on some of those early conversations, and he shared a concept for multifamily. He shared a couple of concepts. One that I recall was about multifamily development, that if you were to put together, say, a small home, what he kind of called a small home subdivision, that was kind of, in his mind, still like a multifamily development because it would be smaller lots in an area that you could develop. And his concern was that right now, there is a barrier in the way he described it because of the levels of approval that you have to go through in Northampton County in order to have a project like that to be decided upon, and so that or approved. And so he was wondering, that framework that we submitted was kind of came from he and ANPDC and others who were some realtors and others who were on the call, who gave us this concept of small projects in certain strategic areas around the shore, not, I don't know, necessarily in Town Edge, but small projects, and how could we at least facilitate, you know, smaller developments that could meet certain standards that would allow greater options to people in the county.
Ava, this is Sarah Morgan. I just wanted to add something to what Janet said. In our work with the Berkeley group, who is advising us on the development of the new, the updated comprehensive plan, we are including increased density around existing villages. Those are the inland villages, not the waterfront villages, for reasons that we've already alluded to with the coastal resilience and subsidence and that sort of thing. But I think that people, some of the developers and others who are interested in the type of housing that you're referring to will be glad to see, you know, that development.
Yeah, I think that's important because when we're looking at the overall scope of this, we have to know, you know, we are a challenged county financially, so we have to see what's sustainable with the cost of the counties. And we've always been concerned with, farmland turning into endless subdivisions because of those costs and for various reasons. But when we go around by our historic villages and hamlets where we've had the development before, I think there's a lot of openings there. I guess I have to caution, having been involved in this for so long, that just like our whatever views we have to balance what developers are saying, because in their perfect world, they want everything by right. So we have to see what encourages them to do sustainable development. We will, of course, want to do that, but we also have to take into account, the other things. And my personal thing is gentrification. So we have that in play in Northampton. We have become very popular in tourism, and it is a great economic driver. But we also have to try to see the developments, the coastal areas that came before us, and the things that they did that worked and didn't work. And I guess I just want to throw in real quick, is there a way, maybe Charles would be to ask, if we could have, you had such great presenters, Ava, on this call, that maybe we could get the gentleman, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names, from the architectural university. You know, yeah, I mean, that's so, I think to get us out of thinking about our usual stuff, I think that would really lift us up and encourage us that there are ways to do this and how other areas that are challenged. You know, if we could have, because CV's, our thing is not really taking stands, but providing information. And we have for Northampton, you know, tell people, we encourage them to go to the meetings, the planning commission meetings, make their voices known. We'll keep doing that. And if there's anything that comes from this group that you want out there, you know, we'll certainly do our share. But I think we could have some more of those kind of visions that are actually on the ground working. If we could, you know, help promote that, have a presentation. I hate that we have to do everything online now, but if that's the only way. So anyway, I would encourage that. And if there's any part that we could play to helping that happen, we would certainly do it.
Thank you.
I know we mentioned innovation and creativity in solving some of our problems. And he mentioned about some of the greatest dangers in people losing, let's say, a small home they've built. You know, I would worry about failing wells, wastewater treatment, power bills. So what I personally would like to see perhaps in some of these new communities would be solar, community wastewater systems and water systems, so that the burden is not on individual homeowners. That's just something that worries me in the back of my head. If you're not going to be close to water and wastewater infrastructure.
Design. So something like design innovations and innovations in infrastructure.
For the communities that would not be right in town edge.
Close to the services, right?
Right.
I think we're just about done. I was gonna ask about the housing study and to find out, you know, if people felt like there were things that we needed to include in the housing study, but we'll probably have to continue that conversation outside of this in our next committees, because we're just about out of time, and I want to leave some time for closing out with questions and answers and so forth. So thank you all. If things come to mind about things that you'd like to see us do over the next 12 months, drop them in the messages here, shoot me an email, and I'll get them back out when I send out the reports. But thank you all. We need to get back to the main session. I'm going to close out the session. Welcome back, everyone. I hope your sessions were productive. Did I snatch you guys out unexpectedly? I did.
Yes, you did. You gave us a 2-minute warning.
Yes, it was counting down, and all of a sudden, boom. Sorry about that. I dropped notices in the chat to say, it said that I was chatting to everyone, that we had about 10 minutes. And then I dropped another one that said we have 2 minutes. Those didn't show up?
No,
just seconds.
Resolved.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, I said, I wonder if they're seeing these, or because it says Ava Gabrielle to everyone. And I was like, well, I hope it's everyone and not just everyone in my session.
Oh.
I think it was your session. Yeah.
Oh,
You were all powerful today.
Yes, indeed.
I apologize. But I wanted to get us back in to. Actually gave you a couple extra, about 2 extra minutes, because I thought that you might be having some good conversation. I'm gonna ask if you would each take maybe a minute or a minute and a half to just give a quick report back of the things that you talked about in your breakout sessions. If we have any final questions for one another after that, I'm still gonna try to get you out by noon. So how about we'll start with you, Chris. Did you have a report?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of quick things under item number 1. There was some discussion more specifically about the weatherization program and some conversations that have been had and that will be coming up around trying to enhance the service delivery on the shore. Sounds like that's moving in a good direction in terms of those conversations, and some more meetings will be happening in the next couple of weeks. And then there was also the comment of looking to leverage those funds with other funds that are available, whether it's through indoor plumbing program or rural development program. So trying to layer programs together to create a more complete package. And then I thought another interesting comment was that the comment that there's a issue with getting quality contractors on the shore. So looking at how you can, build up that network so that as this work becomes more available, you've got a good contractor, good workforce network in place to deliver it. So those were most of the comments under the first goal. The second question we had, overall the group felt like the coalition and the whole collaborative was moving very well in terms of meeting the objectives, and thought we were on target, didn't really have anything else to add in terms of new objectives. I would say that Caroline Bott was in our group, and she did offer that, as group moves forward with ideas and recommendations, that she and her office are there if there's a need for federal support, letters of support, and so on, to just make sure we keep her and her team abreast. And then there was just the final comment about the Hampton Road Sanitation District, and really that infrastructure can hold back development opportunities or the availability of water, and particularly sewer infrastructure. And I guess there's some upcoming decision points around future work with HRSD. So it was just, to get that on everyone's radar, because you definitely need it's not just the housing, it's not just the need, but you need the infrastructure in place to support the development.
Thank you. Thank you. Karen, do you have a report?
I can't hear you, Ava.
Oh, you can't hear me? How about now? Wait a minute.
Nope.
I can't hear her either.
She's unmuted.
Yeah, I'm not muted. What's happening?
She's not showing it, so I'm not sure what it is. Now
you're muted.
Okay. How about now? No?
Her speaker's out. Use the chat.
Could your laptop be muted separately?
Okay, she's asking she's asking about the group that talked about the housing resource conference.
Okay, hey, how are you doing, Karen?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm good to see you.
You as well,
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm gonna make sure Ms. Chet okay. Yes, we do have a report, and just wanted to offer for our housing conference group, we do want the focus to remain on the low income residents. We also wanted to be sure to go back to the report from August the 21st about what, some of the feedback that we received from this past housing resources conference in order to build upon for the next year. We want to, it was always suggested that we have some training or some classes leading up to the resource conference, maybe as some pre-work, so that persons who are interested in home ownership or looking for a rental of properties, that they would have some classes offered even leading up to the resource conference. And that some of the vendors that we had, some of the agencies that we had involved in the resource conference, that they have short video clips that we're able to share on social media leading up to the conference, that kind of tells about their particular agency and what services they provide and how they can help those on the shore. Another suggestion was that we need to be more intentional about how we're connecting with the residents of the shore, particularly the ones who are in most need of the housing services, and that they're not always having access to electronics as far as online surveys and so forth. So we need to be more intentional about how we're able to engage with them to get their true and authentic input about what their needs are, because we may be missing the mark in some respects if we're not able to truly gain what their needs are, for the housing market. And we want to also be able to, what's this last one? Also that there be some type of monthly monthly event, and we can look at the frequency, monthly event or something leading up to the conference as a way of just keeping folks engaged, letting them know that these resources are available, and building up to the conference itself, that folks know who are the persons that they can contact for which services, and also to get them in that frame of mind of being ready to engage more at the conference. Because I think for some on the 21st, it was kind of their initial time meeting with some of those agencies. And if we're able to kind of engage them more leading up to the conference, would probably generate some better or more meaningful feedback for those agencies too going forward. Thank you.
Okay, so
and I'm gonna toss it over to Ramona.
No, can't hear you, Ava.
Still can't hear you, Ava. Okay. Thank you, Karen. And so our group was looking at resources and some of the ideas of actions that we'd like to see in the coming year. Are one of the things is to see how we can implement the VITA, the Virginia Individual Development Account program on the shore. That's a great economic development strategy for assisting lower income individuals who may be interested, of course, in home ownership or starting a new business. Also, we have a USDA RCDI, Rural Community Development Initiative grant that's just been awarded to DHCD, and we've got 2 communities on the shore that will be recipients of that grant. And part of that grant also has to do with capacity building and entrepreneurship. And so that's opportunities there to provide some capacity building training and opportunities to maybe collaborate with our partner, Virginia Housing, and their capacity building endeavors on the shore as well. So the capacity building under RCDI, also in providing additional technical assistance. Rusty also shared with us opportunities with the Housing Preservation Grant. So that's something in which we could look to apply for to help us with renovation work and replacement housing opportunities, and possibly sharing of staff as a leveraging tool for some of our organizations as they begin to implement some of the programs or new programming that they have on board. Also, as was mentioned, after Chris mentioned the need for quality contractors on the shore. And again, we identified that as well as an action item to possibly collaborate with the local college system or university system to establish maybe a training program, certification program for developers and small developers and contractors, just to increase the pool of quality contractors on the shore. And then additionally, this is capacity building as well, but just to provide greater training to our organizations in fund development, not only fund development and fundraising, but leadership transition or succession building, succession leadership in our organizations. And then other goals in the coming year are just to complete that regional housing study and implement some of the recommendations from the housing study. We'd like to see that to happen in the next year. And then also prepare our Mary Ann Smith organization. They have a pre-planning grant. Have them ready to submit a planning grant for architectural and engineering studies for the Mary Ann Smith Community Enrichment Center is a goal. And my colleague Sabrina Blackett took out additional notes. So Sabrina, did I miss anything?
No, you're good. Thank you.
Okay.
You got
Thank you.
Well, thank you both.
Oh, you're back. Okay, great.
I'm trying to talk to you from my phone now. So I think I have to turn off the sound over here. How about that? Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Without the feedback. Good. So I'll be brief because we are literally right at the noon hour. And I'm gonna ask, before I give my report, I'm gonna ask if folks mind indulging us for 10 minutes so we get out at 12:10 rather than 12:05, so that if there are any questions that people feel are pressing that they have to answer out, because I'm gonna take 2 minutes now, give this recording. Unless people have no questions, then we can get out at 12:05.
Ava, this
but
is
our report was, we did the government report, and we focused on the comp plan first with both counties. Supervisor Renita Major talked to us about, I asked about what we could do to kind of follow up on a recommendation at one of our earlier meetings this year, where he said that he would be interested in hearing from the citizenry and about housing in order to strengthen the county comp plan in the ways that it needs to be strengthened and or revised to include more emphasis on housing if people felt that that was necessary and appropriate, that he thought it was a good idea to start that conversation sooner rather than later, so that when the time comes that
Ava,
the plan needs to be revised and updated, that language is already kind of in the works. And Supervisor Major suggested that maybe one of the ways of doing that would be to reach out to the constituents through meetings in the different communities to begin to raise those conversations.
Ava, your voice is fading on us. It's kind of intermittent. Yeah, it's kind of intermittent. We captured that you were speaking about Renita Major and the comp plan for Accomack County. We also heard that you were one of the suggestions was to getting input from the communities on that comp plan, but we didn't hear the rest of it.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Okay, so I'll hold the phone closer. And so the recommendation was to hold community meetings with the constituents to discuss strengthening the language, the housing language in that county's comp plan. We talked about Northampton County's comp plan process being already well underway, and they're working with the Berkeley group in that county to talk about plans for increasing density in appropriate places around that county. And so in the town edge, of course, but also possibly in other areas. But if that is done, that there would also need to be conversations around innovation in design and infrastructure, so that the cost of building, for example, a house on a smaller parcel in an outlying area isn't so cost prohibitive for a family that they can't afford to do it. So things like solar panels and alternative infrastructure for water and sewer, it's not so cost prohibitive. Those kinds of ideas would need to be discussed and included in any strategy to allow people to do small subdivisions or build in outlying areas. And so that was one of the things that we would like to see happen over the next year, is to have more conversations around what I think it was Janet called this conversation around the difference between residential and how they develop building strategies for citizens that make the building in residential communities or rural communities affordable, or at least in the as it is in the residential areas. If I'm saying that correctly, maybe Janet, someone can kind of chime in and help me out there. But
I can't hear you. This is terrible. I'm sorry.
You can't hear me? I
No.
don't. Now I'm on my phone, and this is how I normally do it. I don't know why this isn't working now. Well, then that's it. I'm going to turn it over for questions, because obviously this is not working for me. I'm going to turn it over. Am I working now?
Yes.
Get out of Dodge.
Right now you are. Whatever you're doing right now works.
Hi,
I
Jane.
have no idea what just happened. Can you hear me now on this thing?
No.
Can't hear me.
No.
Okay. Now I give up.
Ava, can you type in the chat box for us?
I don't know.
Type your question. Type your comment in the chat box for us.
I'm chatting. Okay.
Miss Downing, while
Are
Ava's doing
there
that, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Yes, Ms. Cabarrus.
Okay. What I want to say that we need to keep into consideration that for next year, that a lot of people, we're having the conferences, but a lot of people may fall down below qualifying for anything that we're doing, because the COVID probably is messing up a lot of people's credit. So if we just going to meet and we haven't considered how we're going to deal with that, I think that should be inclusive for 2021, because a lot of people that may would have qualified, this has really messed their credit up.
Okay, so we need to be looking at how COVID has affected income and credit, credit worthiness and all of that.
Yes.
Be able to even qualify for housing is what you're
Yes.
saying.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes. And I believe we had someone on the conference this year that was dealing, well, we had several lenders, so we'll have them to also speak to about the effects of the credit score too. Thank you. Yes. And I guess Ramona is going to take it from here.
Either one of you.
You're doing a great job, Karen.
Were there?
You always do.
Were there any other questions or comments or last points before we kind of adjourn the summit for this year? I know that there's a lot of additional work, and we thank you all for staying and spending the time with us to be able to wrap up this critically important work for the Eastern Shore. We thank all of the presenters. Rusty, we want you to stay safe. You and your family to stay safe. Thank you for being with us today. We are quite excited about everything that you showed us as well. And we're going to be putting together, the Housing Coalition will be putting together a report from everything, all the goals that were reported on today, as well as the new initiatives that came forth from all of your wonderful input in the small groups. And we'll be putting together that report, and I'm sure Ava will have us on track as far as our quarterly meetings. And we're going to be asking you, if you didn't already put it in the chat, which committee that you would like to serve on too, because we're, she'll be forming the committees for the work that we've actually outlined today. So we are, please contact her. December will be the next quarterly meeting. So yes, we'll be picking that up in December. And if there's any particular committee of any of the work that you heard today, the shore resources part, the government part, the housing conference, as well as the, what is that last one? The nonprofit capacity building. If there are any of those committees that you would like to work on, you can just put them in the chat box real quick. I think Ava's going to be saving that file as well. And we will get the PowerPoints. If the presenters will send Ava your slides and everything, so she's able to share that as part of the package from today, we would greatly appreciate it. And with that, unless, Ramona, do we have anything else we missed?
I think you covered everything, but I wanted to thank Miss Ava and the New Road Development Corporation for her leadership. She is words can't really describe what I've learned from Ava over the past year. She is a true, what we call a DACD, a spark plug, and an ambassador for the shore. And I've really felt it a grand privilege to work with Ava, and not only Miss Ava, but Miss Karen Downing, Miss Cabarrus, and so Miss Smith, and so many others, Bobby Word at the PDC, and so many folks on the shore, and also Miss Alice Coles, and just so many other spark plugs on the shore. New Road has for the past year, she's done everything that we've asked of her from DHCD. She was a driving force for initiating that housing summit last year, and since then, she and her partners have taken it and run with it. And these the 6 goals that were established, the accomplishments that have been have occurred with those goals, and new goals that have been shared today. Actions. I'm really looking forward to working with Ava and other stakeholders and partners in the coming year. And when we come back this time next year, can't wait to hear the successes over the next year and see new housing and greater capacity building and VITA and other initiatives on the shore. And so I just want to thank you, Ava, and your team for working with DHCD and our other partners. And I just hope you'll want me to continue working with you and your group. But it's been a real privilege, and I've had the great opportunity to meet and talk with Rusty and know Chris Thompson. Chris actually is doing a session for us on Monday on adaptive reuse housing opportunities. And so that's Monday at 11. And I'm happy to share invites to that. So our partner collaboration is really effective in working with you, Ava, and other shore members. So that's all I wanted to say, and I really thank all of you and hope you enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Ms. Karen.
Yeah, was one other thing I did want to share in case you didn't see it in the chat box. The Governor's Housing Conference is going to be going on November 18th through the 20th, and actually Ava is going to be one of the presenters for the conference too. But the conference is now going to be virtual, so we encourage you, to please sign up for that Governor's Conference. A lot of great information will be shared there as well. And I think with that, we're done. We are at 12:13. Thank you so very much, everyone, for being a part. And we'll be talking with you again real soon. Take care.
Good job. Thank you, Ava.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Nice session. Good. Very informative.
Thank you, Rusty. Thank you all. Thank you.
I just wanted to stick tight and say thanks for including us today. It was a lot of fun.
Thank
Hopefully,
you. Thank you so much.
look forward to figuring out ways we can work with you guys. It's a really, really remarkable group you got.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry
All right.
for whatever's happening here. Sorry for whatever went on. I said I was sorry for whatever's going on with my my audio. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if you want to hear it, if it's good to hear or not, but it's perfect now. So
get out.
It's the look, we like you, we do these every day, and that's the way it works. I was doing a presentation yesterday for about 200 people at USDA, like in USDA offices all over the United States. And one of the state administrators somehow took over the presentation by accident, clicked a button somewhere, and couldn't figure out how to sort of give it back. And so, it just, the whole thing, it just sort of came apart, and they were all mortified. I thought it was hysterical, but
I have no idea what happened. I literally have not touched the computer.
Nah, it's the way this stuff works. Well, I don't want to keep you. I know you're
thank
longer
you
than
so
you've been,
much.
but really appreciate it. Yeah, reach out, when you want to catch up. And I've already got some folks that have reached out to me here. Any follow-up that I do, or I'll make sure I loop you in that, make sure you're looped in that conversation if you're not. So really appreciate the opportunity to share our work.
In our group, one of the recommendations that was made from, I think, someone in Northampton County was to invite you back, have the county formally invite you back. To
fantastic.
Talk further about some of the things that you've been sharing. So I will certainly do my best to help facilitate that effort.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. Anything that's useful. Hey, Andy, nice to see you again.
I had to jump out for a second. My wife called. Looks like we're over.
Yeah. We're done.
Yeah,
we're done.
We're just having
we're done. Yeah, we're done.
We're just having old home week.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for your participation, though, Andres.
Yeah. A couple of things. Our breakout room went well. The Accomack lady asked a lot about NCall, so I explained that. But Chris brought it back to trying to do the capacity building, I mean we could do both. I wanted to bring that to your attention because the
Accomack lady asked a lot of questions about
because she's on the NCall board. Yeah, because she's on the
board. Yeah, sure. And she was the one that so I first recommended NCall as a potential technical assistance provider.
Yeah.
And she's on the board, and so she was charged with going back and trying and making that because they had worked with us in New Road for many years. And so she was kind of charged with going back and making that connection. And she was the one that has reported a couple of times that they said that they no longer provided technical support.
And I remembered you said that. Now, I mean, I talked to their housing person and their loan fund person, and they both sounded open to me, especially if it was something related to what we were doing. I mean, they have their niche, but I think they're open. I mean, and we can figure out those dynamics. It's better to still do the capacity building piece, but for somebody that's trying to do a project where it makes sense, and if we can help fund that, great.
I think Rule List can probably open doors that maybe others cannot. So we're grateful.
That can be part of it.
Yeah.
And then just while Rusty's here, I am talking to our VP about a network partnership and pushing for that, which would mean a lot of money, but access to the network. So like theoretically,
that's fantastic.
Theoretically, those healthy housing grants are $10,000 to $15,000 towards doing something to help green a project. Theoretically, if you were a member and we're partnering on a project here, you can apply for that next year towards pre-development of something, or for some of your time to help the folks out here, So that's just something to keep in mind. I will I'm going to push for that and bring it up to our membership committee.
Well, I appreciate that. Let me know. That's great to hear. I was just I was just sticking around to tell you I have a half-written email to you to tell you it was nice to see you and hear you speak at this conference. But I'll send that to you anyway. But no, that's great news. And if you need anything from our end to help facilitate that, we'd be happy to.
There would be I gotta get them to approve it first, but and then there would be paperwork and getting all your info and all that, because because you're kind of like this situation. It's not our typical fit, but we're looking outside the box with our member partners.
Yeah. Well, that's always one of our. I think we talked about it last time we spoke. That's always one of our challenges. Is we don't really look like, your kind of traditional affordable housing providers. We're kind of a funny, one of a kind organization, which that's a good thing, because we're able to do things a little differently than others are. But it's often a challenge. But we're anything we can do that's useful.
Well, you're able to do things in difficult markets. I mean, part of this overall is, especially this year, is we're trying to push towards working where we need to be working. I mean, the Black Belt, Eastern Shore.
Yep.
If we're not working there, then why are we here?
Well, I think Ava and I would wonder that same thing too. So you sort of articulated.
So I will try to push. I will try to push for that, and hopefully it grows.
Well, if it's useful to have a kind of a particular and even a narrowly scoped opportunity to work, I think our conversations with Ava, who as I'm sure is doing work both there on the Eastern Shore and in kind of rural Alabama.
I need to hear
this would be a great way to kind of tiptoe into some work together. So yeah. Okay. You guys chat, and if we help make that a little stickier, that's great. That's great for everybody.
Okay, great. I have to head out, but pleasure seeing y'all. Take care.
Thanks, you guys.
It was a pleasure.
See you.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
And be safe.
Bye-bye. Yeah, thanks. You too.